Let's go.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another long-awaited episode of the Mixup. It's been some time, as per usual, but with every episode, we promise that we'll be better next time. I am turned down for Walt. I am joined by, of course, my lovely co-host, Mr. RadarSSBM, and we have some very, very great guests for us today, talking and shaking our angry fists at Nintendo. You heard us, so yeah. What's going on? We got Sabre and we got Wiseley here on the pod. Thank you. How you guys doing today? And welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's been a good day. Thanks for having us on. I'm sure we're going to do plenty of getting angry at Nintendo, like you said. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for this episode. Like Walt said, took a little while for us to do an episode. I can vividly recall at one point a conversation where he said something like, I think we can finally return to a regular schedule. Like, we'll maybe finally do that every 2 weeks thing. And I was like, sounds amazing. But
it's hard.
It honestly is hard. And I don't want to paint this as a Walt only problem. They're gonna be like, hey, so episode.
This is just a podcasting problem.
Yeah,
any shows that I've been like, oh, I'll do this like every other week consistently, never happens.
It's hard
Or
when
it
you have
happens
guests
and I
too.
get up to like a couple months. I'm like, I just can't keep this up.
Yeah, I mean,
It
like
doesn't
even
hurt.
with you guys, we were gonna do it. I think a couple weeks ago. We wanted to do it before Riptide, and then it was kind of like one of us couldn't do it Monday, one of us couldn't do it Tuesday, one of us couldn't do it Wednesday, and then me and Wiseley were gone for Riptide at that point.
Yeah,
So it's kind of
exactly.
like,
And then Walt and I hung out without you two at
That's
Riptide.
right. Yeah, that's a good place to start, though. I mean, we have again, it's been kind of a minute since our last mix-up episode, so there's no shortage of news and PSAs to look through. But I mean, what a better place to start than Riptide, from the attendee himself. How was it over there, Wiseley?
I mean, Riptide was really good. I was kind of nervous. Obviously, it was like my first big event post like solo quarantining. And like, yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. But the fact that there was like 5 breakthrough cases noted so far out of, we're 2 weeks later, out of like thousands of people that were there is honestly some really good numbers.
Yeah.
I felt a lot more comfortable once I was there about all of the, like, obviously vaccine mandate and the vaccine or proof of negative test, and then the masks and everything else. I think it helped a lot of people feel better. I saw a lot of talk like on Twitter, but not in person, about like, man, there's a lot of people here not wearing masks, and like everywhere I looked, it wasn't Smashers. It was people at the hotel. It was people that just weren't part of our group. It's like, well, yeah, we can't really do anything about that. But in the actual venue is fine for the most part. I know that staff were able to directly tell people like, hey, pull your mask over your nose, stuff like that, which helped a lot. Yeah, it was really fun. And then obviously the video games were good too. So it was just good to see everybody. I'll be real, like just seeing everybody again for that, and meeting people that I hadn't seen in person in that long.
Like you and me, dude.
We hung out. We ended up in Coney's hotel room, which apparently wasn't Coney's hotel room. That's fine.
Yeah, it was Vince's room, and Vince.
We got some stories from there later.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're allowed to say or not.
I mean, I think we're pretty. I think what's his last name? Vince Fandango, I think it is. He was VGBC. He's Coney's content manager and everything like that. He just like up and bought a suite, which at the resort is literally an apartment room. Like it has like a bedroom, it has a living room. So Coney was streaming there every day.
Yeah.
Of the tournament, which was nuts.
Yep, he was streaming. A lot of people used it to like make content. That was the famed room where Wizzy just walked in, got his chips, and left.
Oh my god, dude! The most bizarre shit. Did you guys see that tweet that I made?
I did see that. I definitely had like FOMO the whole time. Like I'm just like
You'll be
looking
there
at the
next
tweets.
time.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Being in that room while it happened, if just Wizzy be like, "What are you here for?" I'm here to get chips.
It was.
Does
Yeah,
anybody
just
here
so
know
bizarre.
that? Like, what's going on?
Oh my god. Yeah, that was a fun weekend.
Mhm.
I had my first work with Panda, so that was really fun for me.
Let's go.
Congrats, by the way. I
Thank
feel like we
you.
haven't, acknowledged that on a show.
We haven't
You wanna
talked,
tell us
man.
a
It's
little
been
bit?
so long. Yeah.
That's well, no, I've talked to you about it privately, like I did message you, but
Yeah.
like in terms of what for people who may not have heard, if you've been living under a rock, can you tell us a bit about that, Walt?
Yeah. So I'm the lead producer for. Sorry, my LUT is like very red right now. I need to fix that. Um, I'm the lead producer for PG Stats, working very closely with Panda Global just in general, but I'll kind of be running a lot of what's going on with the PG Stats channel on YouTube. So if you guys aren't subscribed to that, that's my CTA right now, is to check it out. We released a couple cool things at the event. I got to shoot a really quick on-the-fly interview with Cody after he won. We got Coney and MK Leo interviewing together, and we kind of were able to corner the market on MK Leo interviews, which was pretty dope. It's just been like a lot of really cool stuff. Like as soon as I got there on Thursday, my hotel was like a mile away down this like really sketchy highway in Ohio. And here's a fun little story. Ohio just doesn't have Ubers. Like they just don't do rideshare. Yeah.
They do. They're all controlled by the same person.
Yeah. So I found that out because the first night I'm trying to find an Uber, and I find one car, and this girl picks me up and she goes, "I am the only Uber in Ohio. So,
Oh my God.
so here's my
What kind of
card."
dystopian crap is that?
I was like, "What the fuck?" So she goes, "Here's my card. Call me if you need to schedule a ride, and I got you." And I was like, "All right, cool." Which was super clutch because I ended up calling her to drive me, Cody, Tish, who's the creative director at Panda, back to the airport. Which, fun little side thing about that was we actually ended up running into DeBuzz, who went into the same car as us too, which was an experience. But I wake up the next morning in my hotel and I'm trying to like get to the venue. I'm like, I'm gonna call an Uber. It's expense, whatever. And I go to the front desk and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have rideshare apps? Like, is there a better one to use here?" And the hotel person just goes, "No." And I was like, "Oh." And she was just like, "Yeah, we don't do that here. Like, you can get taxis if you want."
Yep.
And I was like, it's not that far. Like, I could just walk, but I'm carrying so much equipment with me that I don't know if I should. So, long story short, shout outs to Tailwinds, Rivals of Ether music composer.
Oh, let's go Tailwinds.
Yeah, he actually picked me up multiple days in a row. And the first time we met, I was actually walking down the highway like a hobo. And
Oh my
he
God,
just
I didn't
pulled
know
over and was like, "Get in." And I was like, "All right, stranger, sounds good." And we just hung out after that. So he was a cool guy.
Yeah, there apparently one person in Columbus, or not Columbus, in Sandusky, Ohio, who just controls all of the Ubers and the ride shares, and you have to call her and she'll be like, "All right, I'll send someone out to you," which at that point
Yeah.
is just a taxi service again.
It's crazy, man.
And in the way of circular content creation, The Yard has also talked about this.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
That's how I heard about it. Yeah.
Nice.
yeah, where literally it was just Nick and Aiden had the exact same experience of like the Uber cartel of,
Yeah.
of one person controls the entire thing.
Yeah, Aiden was hilarious. His event, I guess, went well enough, from what I heard. So that's pretty dope. But yeah, I mean, overall for me, it was really fun. As soon as I got there, I was just like thrown into the fire. We were just I got into the hotel with Tish, and I proceeded to shoot interviews for people for 4 hours straight after that. And I was just like, all right, I guess this is my life now.
Yep. And then I ran into you and Tish.
Yeah.
Met Tish, and you guys were both so hungry that you kind of just were like, "No, we are not stopping until we get food, and then we can talk."
Yeah. But it was a fun time. Results wise, I'm happy for my boy, man. Cody deserves it. I would have been happy with Plup too, but it's pretty cool that it was just like a Panda Grand Finals on the first event that I went to representing that team. So that's always a cool thing. and Ultimate was a fun time too. I don't think many of us here. I don't know if you guys watch Ultimate that much.
I watched a little bit, and my
okay.
takeaway, as usual, was Leo's just insane.
Oh, he's so
But
good.
I
Oh
only
my
really
God.
saw Leo play.
There was one very funny happenstance, and then I'll pass it off to whoever wants to proceed with either next topic or any anecdotes from watching Riptide or anything like that. But I was with Coney, and he was live streaming most of the weekend, but he had the streaming backpack. So he was streaming the event, and he was just
That
kind
thing
of like,
really did look like a bomb by the way. Before
it was
he like
crazy,
assembled
dude.
it to put it.
Yeah, like, it was like very
Apparently-
concerning.
And he said he brought it into the airplane, and just like the person was like, "So I need to scan that." And he's like, "I do know what it looks like. I am sorry. I promise
Oh
it's
my
not."
God. That's fucking great. Yeah, but he's streaming all the sets, and they asked me to stay because Wadi was still in. So they're like, just get Wadi's set. If he wins, he's probably gonna pop off. And just try to get some shots of that. So I was like, all right, cool. So I hang out, and I'm chilling with Coney. We were talking on the stream and everything, and then Wadi's down, like, I think he's down 2-0, and for those unindoctrinated in Ultimate, Wadi's a Rob player, but he apparently has a Wii Fit pocket, which
And
Wii Fit's
a
very bad.
Very, very good Mewtwo.
Yeah, not super good characters, I guess, by Ultimate standards, but Rob is good.
Yeah, Robin's super good. Mewtwo and Wii Fit are like mid tier, but yeah,
Okay.
he plays.
So he's down like 2-0, and he hovers Jigglypuff. Like, he selects Jigglypuff and then just waits, and the crowd's just going like berserk. And then Coney's standing right next to me. I'm waiting to see if I can find a shot.
Puff is bad in that game.
Actually bad.
But he has Jigglypuff selected, and he's just waiting to press start. And I forget who he was playing against. Maybe it was like Leon or something like that.
The
Leon?
Bowser?
I can't remember now. I could be totally wrong about that.
Well,
Whoever
Let's
it
just
was,
pretend
yeah.
it was Leon. Yeah.
Yeah. But Coney just walks up like right next to the stage. He just goes, "No! No! Do not do that!" And it's like on live stream, and everyone's cracking up at him. And then he just goes, "We don't pay you enough for you to play fucking Jigglypuff! Like, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Play Rob right now!" And he's just like coaching him like on what character to pick. And then Wadi looks at him, he's like, "Come on, let me do it." And then he's just like, "No, play Rob right now or you're done." And he just changes back to Rob and then runs it. I think he wins that game, which was cool, but he ended up getting knocked out, I think, at 9th or something like that. But
Sure,
it was
yeah.
just hilarious, man.
That's
There
amazing.
was a lot of good moments like that all weekend from every game.
Yeah.
I mean, so we talked about Melee, we talked about Ult. I'm just gonna say it was literally the best Rivals tournament ever. It was for sure the biggest Rivals tournament ever, but also just like everything that happened. You had the right amount of upsets, the right amount of hype matches, certain people making it far. All the storylines came together. You got like the ultimate viral clip.
Yeah, I see Ventus in the chat brought it up.
Yeah, but like as someone who's deep into the rival scene, that tournament was just incredible. I'm super glad I could do top 16 comms for that.
I was about to ask what you casted again. But...
Yeah, I did top 16. It was literally a coin flip if well, not literally, but could have done top 8 as well. So yeah, I did top 16 for that. It was really fun. And then Undertow. We'll just bring it up now. I know we're going to do an actual P+ section later, but Undertow was super hype. I mean, I think if you get 200, I think with DQs it was like 150 nerds out to a hotel in the middle of Ohio for a tournament that was canceled.
That's not bad.
I think that's great.
To be honest, I didn't even know that happened, so that's really cool that something like that could just happen kind of behind the scenes like that.
Yep.
On 2 weeks' notice. Got a new venue,
That's so
new stream
nuts.
set up, whole thing.
Yep. Totally new TOs, new stream, everything. Absurd tournament. Undertow. We'll talk about Undertow actually later, but put it this way: the #1 seed almost drowned in pools. Like
That's
it was
The active
crazy.
best- yeah, both of the 2 best players in the world got out of pools in losers on game 3. It was
That's crazy. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cool event.
Cool. Well, I think also again, just shout outs to Cake Assault as always. Man, your shoulder is so dope, dude. Um, that yeah, that I still am thinking about that because I'm getting messages from like news stations that still want to use it. So I'm like, all right, like let's keep this gravy train going, man.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Someone from MTV messaged me today. That's
Ooh,
pretty.
that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's just a fun thing to say out loud.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then someone
I'll
from
have to find where they post it to plug my own video
Yeah.
underneath it again.
yeah, and someone from CNN messaged me, and I was like, I don't even know what you want to do with it, but that's cool. Um, so
I
it's
forget
been-
that there's a
yeah.
world where viral videos aren't just like contained to YouTube and Twitter,
It's
but there are
insane,
people who
man.
still discover viral things through like their local news.
Yeah, it's fucking wild, dude. And I am actually putting together like a little video to explain like my thoughts on it because it was
Sure.
really cool, but like there were so many aspects of it that I thought were things that a lot of people weren't ready for, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy, like how fast and how much all of this happens at once.
Mhm.
But that'll be my next video, hopefully. So we'll see how that one performs relative to everything
Nice.
else. But I think this is a probably good segue to talk about one of our main topics for today, because you mentioned the event was called Undertow, right?
Yeah.
And it is kind of crazy, and this is like the obvious elephant in the room. The reason that we're having this stream and this episode, and you two as guests, of course, is just P Plus and Project M, however you want to refer to it as, has just been getting completely shafted, more or less, by Nintendo, and it's really unfortunate to see. There's been kind of like a lot of events dropping the game left and right after what felt like, and if I'm paraphrasing this incorrectly, please interrupt me, but it really did, in my opinion, feel like P Plus was on a really good upswing, and then to
absolutely. Yeah.
culminate at like showing up at live events like Riptide being the first one and that first domino, to have that taken away, and then all of these other events following suit, it's just like really disappointing to see. And I mean, again, this is why we wanted to bring you guys on. So run us through kind of the history and everything. Just, tell us what's going on with this.
Yeah. Sam, do you want me to take a crack at it?
Yeah, I was just gonna quick say, yeah, you're absolutely right. We thought that these couple of months up till like November were going to be enormous for the P Plus scene, and so it wasn't just like the domino being pulled, but it was also the enormity of what we lost. But yeah, I'll let Saber kind of take it from here for a bit.
Yeah. This last year, I would say it really has been about a year since Project Plus came out in the summer of 2020, and then after the Melee scene and the Smash scene as a whole rallied behind Slippy after the Big House Online got pulled, there was a lot more solidarity for PM than there had been basically since 2015, when we had the flow pulled out from under us the first time. And I think after the Big House Online got pulled, a lot of Melee people really felt for the first time what it was like to be in other shoes, and we saw a lot more people who were interested in supporting PM, even if they weren't necessarily interested in playing the game. And so this year, with events coming back, Riptide we capped for PM faster than any of the other games. We capped faster than Melee. We capped faster than Ultimate.
Really?
We raised the cap. Yeah, it capped in 3 hours, and then they doubled the cap, and it capped in 10 minutes, and then they raised it again, and it capped in 3 minutes.
Like if this was an uncapped event, it would have been the largest PM event of all time.
That's
Yeah,
nuts.
without question.
Without a doubt, would have been the largest PM tournament ever.
Yeah, with a cap, I think it was set to be third. And that was only one of them. We were gonna have
I think it was fifth, but yeah, same. It's just
yeah,
huge.
top five. I don't remember the number, but yeah. And then we were gonna have main stage. We were gonna be with Beyond the Summit for the first time. This really felt, for the people who have been in the scene since 2015, this felt like we were coming back in the first major way since then. It felt like the Melee and Ultimate communities were respecting PM, and they were including us again. Like, we were really getting to a point where we could sustainably run majors that weren't based on like the 3 people who run the scene doing everything. Like, we actually could have institutional support and money behind us. and then Riptide posted on Twitter, and it all went away. And it was that fast. None of us knew about it before then. It was just out of nowhere, boom. And then all the other events followed suit. Low Tide City did get officially contacted by Nintendo. Main Stage made the decision to drop PM before they got contacted.
There is no way that Main Stage would not have been contacted.
They were going to get contacted, and they were expecting it to happen as late as it did for the other two events, both of which happened about 2 weeks before and left the TOs in a really tough spot because they had to figure out how to refund people. The PM scene had to figure out how to like scramble to put together a major, which to their credit, Undertow went incredibly well. Stude has done an incredible job putting together Shipwrecked. So if you're going to be at Low Tide City, there's going to be something right down the block. But as the PMTO for Main Stage, we didn't want to be in that position where 2 weeks out, I'm trying to find a venue in Los Angeles, of all places. So we made the decision 2 months before, we're going to cut the cord, we're going to figure out how PM is going to move forward separately, rather than waiting and hoping that things work out. And we have had an incredible team come together to put together an event that's going to be actually in the same building as Main Stage. We're literally going to be in the same building, a floor up, which is a crazy thing for us to be doing, but...
Same building, same weekend.
Yep. Just
Like the legendary
TO
TO team. It's so funny.
Yeah. But yeah, all of the teams who wanted to support PM, including people who are doing it for the first time, like Beyond the Summit, and teams that have been doing it for years, like Low Tier City and Smash and Splash have been two of the historic PM majors every year, even in 2015 and 2016 when like nobody had our backs.
Those were the two events that never dropped us. And so for them to get the call from Nintendo, that's why it hurt so much. It's because it was like, oh, we don't even have our standby majors, let alone the people that are like I get it. Like
Right.
Genesis is never going to be able to have PM there because they've partnered with Nintendo before.
Sure.
But to have the events that weren't ever partnered with Nintendo get pulled hurt so much.
Yeah, those were events. Like those were low tier cities run by originally PM players. One of the main TOs for Riptide, formerly Smash and Splash, is Swanner, who's a Project MTO. And they do incredible work putting on events even that don't have PM at them. But it hurts that much more when it's like all the people who have to do that, who have to drop us. It sucks for them too. I know it was terrible for Swanner. It's a horrible thing to have to do on 2 weeks' notice.
Swanner was emotionally wrecked from that. I know that the overall event organizer for Riptide has alluded to the fact that they lost $15,000 from having to...
I mean, that feels super low too when you ask me, because it's like
it's
that was
probably
the biggest
more
thing that I tweeted about it when it first happened, but I was kind of like, how do you get away with doing something like that? And it's like, obviously, yeah, sure, there's legalese behind it, I get it, but like the thousands of people, you said this event capped in 3 hours and 10 minutes twice, so it's like how many people was that for the second cap?
It was 398, I think.
Oh
it was around 400 people.
So like,
and like to put that into context, our largest tournament ever is in the 400s.
It's 400.
Yeah, so that's like,
yeah.
I don't even think like, so 15 grand is incredulously low, I think, to me, to think about just event cost. That's insane that they only lost that much to me, because I think if we were to do like quick math and let's assume that all 400 people that entered that tournament bought a flight. Let's say that that flight was like $300, right? So that's like $100,000 right there, $120,000, right?
Yeah.
Of just lost money across the entire 400-man player base that was going to enter this tournament. Not to mention the cost of entering the bracket, of course, which falls back on, the event.
Yeah,
so that's probably the sunk cost that they had there, but also the space that they had to allocate for it, the setups that they had to allocate for it, which are just all gone. It's
there
just
was an entire
ridiculous to me,
room
man.
at Riptide that we didn't have. Like there was supposed to be another ballroom. I mean, and so as someone who's helped run some larger events, most tournaments of this size, some of what they sell against for the hotel to like make their price manageable is like guaranteed number of hotel rooms that people will buy. And so if you have, I mean, so say it was capped around 400, and I think at Undertow, the Shadow side event that happened was 150 people after DQs.
Yeah,
So that's like
150 after 192.
so that's like 250 people who didn't go, which means 250 people worth of hotel rooms that
Yep.
either didn't get filled or got refunded, and then that means that the TOs are having to eat a lot of that money, like everything. It's so much money.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if some of these events, especially something like Riptide that get hit so hard, like that could make it very difficult to host a second Riptide.
So I was
Like
gonna say is
being
like I
very
think
honest. Yeah.
it's important to also acknowledge that it's like once this kind of thing happens, like even in a perfect world where they're not like where they somehow miraculously are able to afford all of these like costs and stuff. Can you imagine just being like, yeah, let's just try it again. Let's
Well,
just hope
it's
that
2013 all over again, dude, and that's like the
yeah,
part
like
that
it's
really
like let's just
scares me
hope it
for you
works out.
guys. You know?
Yeah, no, that's the spot we're in too. Is we absolutely, we can't blame people, but I also don't expect anyone who got hit here to give PM another shot.
I wouldn't.
It's yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's a hard spot to be in, and I know these people want to support us, but it's a scary spot for them, and they need to take care of themselves first, and we all get that.
It
It's
makes me
scary for
think
them.
about like we had that whole thing with 5 days of Melee too, and I remember when I was running content for that event, I had an interview from someone from Juked. His name escapes me, but we had a whole conversation about like what's going on with PM, like why are you guys doing it like this, and we were just like, because enough is enough. Like this is just fucking bullshit. It's just so stupid that people can't just play a video game that they like, even if it's something innocuous like this, and you have to run these underground like prohibition style tournaments and everything. That's insane to me.
In the last month, we've started using the term shadow major, which I really appreciate because it makes it sound way cooler than a lot of nerds in a small hotel ballroom that wasn't supposed to be there.
I guess
It
like the
depends
fact
who
of the
you
matter
ask,
is
right?
though,
Like,
like
it
it
sounds
shouldn't
cool to
be.
me.
Yeah, it sounds cool, but we shouldn't ever have to use terminology like that. That's the long and short of it. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's super shitty and discouraging, and I feel for you guys as someone who was very entertained, not necessarily involved, but I played PM a lot up to through college and everything like that, and I still play it occasionally too. It's like I know my heart goes out to you guys. It's brutal. I don't know how else to put it.
And if this was just like a continuation of like the last few years, if this was a continuation of like, all right, we're not at these big multinational events, and then we get taken out of LTC and Riptide, it would be like, this sucks, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we got so like we flew too close to the
Yeah.
sun kind of thing, where it, as someone who I play I play Melee, I do PM, I do Rivals, I pay attention to a lot of the other games too. So I know what it's like on both sides of being like, well, okay, I guess I'll never know what it's like to be officially supported by Nintendo, but like not actively, Genesis isn't being shut down. And so having been on both sides and seen both scenes, it really felt like the first time that like it's since 2015 and 2016 when we were like, all right, we're not at Apex anymore. All right, we're not at this tournament anymore. Like we're not at Big House anymore. We're not at this tournament anymore. It felt like the opposite of like, oh, we're going to be able to be at main stage. We're going to be able to like maybe be at some big tournaments or at least like new ones. This is super sick. We were so excited. Like every event was starting to like just blow up in like either cap or have just huge entrant numbers. And then it was all ripped away from us again, and it just hurts that much more the second time.
Yeah, the biggest thing that the people who have really been hit by this the most, like the people who've been working so hard for PM, keep saying to each other is like, we really thought we did it. Like
we thought we finally had it.
We thought we brought PM back. We thought we were back on the big stage at the big events with, with all the other games, and we were so close.
It's
hard
with a little bit of hindsight, it's not quite as bad, but I saw several people that were like, this feels like when the PMDT shut down. This feels like when we got to Paragon and we were told like, hey, you can't be on Twitch suddenly. Like those first domino effects falling.
No, that feeling of like seeing it and just thinking to yourself like, there's no way, like this can't be happening, and just you have no idea what to do next. You don't know who to talk to. Everyone's freaking out. It was exactly the same. It felt like the floor got pulled out from under us, and there was nothing we could do about it, except for everything we've done since.
It's just an awful story, honestly. Like, it's hard to kind of hear this and just think like this just like really keeps happening, and that people like it's literally like traumatic. Like, it's so much. I think people kind of don't acknowledge that, like, like this is. It's very easy to kind of just to game this kind of shit. Like, oh, it's just it's just you don't get your player game, whatever. But if you're like a TO, if you're someone who's like actually financially investing money, like, imagine someone saying like, you lost like.
It's just $15,000.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, it's like that would be.
I didn't have money in it, but I was like,
"This is their careers. This is what they do."
Yeah. I mean, like, even on the. Oh, go ahead.
I would say something that Sabre and I have talked about is like, there's an alternate future where PM was totally fine, and it was the alternate future where like Nintendo didn't care about mods and thought that esports were pretty chill, like whatever, and. Like, we've talked about the fact that like there are people who may have full-time careers doing things that like PM players just have to do to have a scene work at all. That are like, none of our content creators can do stuff full-time. None of them. I don't even think any of us make money at all. We don't have our top commentators aren't like nationally known names that are getting partnerships with esports teams. We don't have anybody that's sponsored players that their job is to practice the game, like all of the things that a lot of these other scenes have. And it's just like Sabre literally could be doing what Tafo did for a long time before you switched over to the League of Legends stuff. Like,
there are like 5 people who are employed by various organizations to do stats and community leadership, and I'm like, all of those people combined.
You do the work of all of them for PM because you have to.
And then I spend money to do it.
It's just, I mean, like, I know, again, going back to the 5-Dom thing, for me, like, selfishly as a fan and, someone who cares about you, like we were saying before the show, like Sabre and I have been mutuals on Twitter, and like we've talked about videos and stuff since I started YouTube for me. So it's been like a very long time.
Oh, sure.
We've been commenting on each other's stuff. I mean, at least before you had like maybe 500 viewers or like 500 subs.
It's been a journey, but it's just like, I think in the position that I was in for 5-Dom, to be able to creative direct for that, it like for me, I was kind of like, damn, it really felt like 5-Dom got the conversation going more. And then it really got like the snowball effect where it leads into all the stuff that we've already, we've hashed this out already a couple times, but it just feels so bad, especially from that perspective where it's like, wow, we really did a really good thing. And these people really care about this, and there's a lot of investment, and there's people that want to see this succeed, which is obvious, and then to just have that pulled out for, I mean, I think we'll all agree it's kind of seemingly no reason, and then there's going to be mouth breathers that are like, well
Nintendo
it's
has
a
to
law,
exercise their
like,
IP rights.
like but it's just I just don't get it, dude. And I don't know, I'm sure you guys have had extensive conversations about what the solution could probably be. I mean, you've had 10 years to do it, so it's kind of like I don't know what the solution is, and that's a really challenging thing to approach.
Yeah, and ultimately neither do we.
I think we thought we had finally hit the solution, and then the solution ended up being taken away from us, and we're like, oh crap.
Yeah,
what do we do now?
Our MO has always been, we're just gonna keep trying and like hope that we don't get hit, because we really don't know what the deal is. The shutdown of the PMDT back in 2015 was incredibly secretive, and a lot of the scene still doesn't know kind of what they knew or what they were being threatened with, or what exactly was in play legally there. And likewise, we don't know what exactly was said between Nintendo and the team at Riptide or the team at Low Tide City. And so we're doing our best to fight this enemy that we don't understand, and we don't really know like how to protect ourselves because we don't know what the problem is specifically. But at the same time,
And Nintendo's never gonna like let us know, like, here's the loophole to run through. Like,
Well, it's like you're getting your
they're
food sent
never
back
gonna
at a
give us-
restaurant, but they don't tell you it's overcooked or anything. They're just like,
yeah.
yep, here's the steak. And you're just like,
Do it
why?
Well, and for so long we thought the answer was all right, then don't partner with Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
we thought like no Genesis, no SmashCon, stuff like that.
and then Riptide and LTC got hit.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, not partnering with Nintendo isn't safe enough. Can we only have like until you hit a certain event size? Like regionals are fine. Please host PM at your regionals. It really means a lot to us. As a small side thing, if you host PM at a regional, it has a chance of becoming a PM national. It just does. Like Melee regionals become PM nationals, and it's always very funny to me. But I'm terrified for like what happens if we get the 400 500 person PM only event. The only game there is PM. What happens if that gets the call?
So I have a
that's
question
what I'm terrified of.
that I want to poke your guys' brain on, like from that perspective. And Radar, if you have anything too, feel free to chime in. I'm thinking again, kind of drawing back to what we did with 5 Days of Melee, and it seems like it was rather successful. Given its limitations. So this is kind of a two-pronged question. Number one, I think I heard something about development for a rollback netcode. Is that something that's ever going to happen?
No.
I highly doubt it.
Short answer, no. The thing you probably heard was a while ago, the PM community, out of curiosity, someone posted like, hey, if there was a bounty for rollback, what would you donate? And then that kind of got some traction, and it was a lot of money. And this every modder the scene has basically said, yeah, that's never going to happen. There's too many things that we need to learn and develop and understand about Brawl's engine before we could even begin coding it. We're too far away from that ever being a possibility, to a point where it would arguably be faster to recode Melee to have
all of the Brawl
and
stuff,
all
yeah,
the characters and all that stuff,
which I suppose has happened in for a different game. So
yeah, but as far as every modder, the PM scene is willing to throw down the money and whatever we need. Every modder has been like, look, we can't even begin to know if this is even possible, because the stuff that made rollback possible for Melee does not exist in Brawl, and so we would have to find our own way to code it in for a mob that, like, for a long time was notoriously finicky to break anyways.
Sure.
Like Sonic just crashed the game for a long time. It doesn't anymore, but now other things do. Like,
I remember having, as a funny side note, I had like the PM like beta or whatever you would call it, where it just had like Sonic as a character and like the normal Melee cast, and it was like this super sketchy, like underground you're going into the dark web to get there sort of thing. It wasn't even like back in the open up Brawl and go to the stage selector thing. It was like you had to like sign a pact with the devil to open up this version of PM somehow, because it was that early access. It's just like a funny thing. But
what's crazy is people don't realize how big PM was at its height.
It was huge, dude. Like, and there's so many people like IBDW, and I was gonna say earlier to Radar's point, like the people that say it's just a game. First off, fuck you to anyone who says it's just a game, you fucking nerds. But like, Cody said this on his stream and on a video that he posted today, and it was like perfect anecdote of, okay, yeah, people who say it's just a game, like, oh, okay, if you play baseball, like, would you be upset that the other team isn't like giving it their best effort, or your teammates aren't trying hard enough? But like, oh yeah, baseball's just a game, so whatever, like, because kids play it. Like, come on, that's so stupid to me. My God.
Yeah.
I just think it's like the just a game thing for me, and I'm kind of repeating myself here, ignores all the like not just a game aspects of it, like the money, the time, the energy, the putting yourself out there and getting shut down. Like it's it's very easy to kind of write it off as just like you don't get to play your game, but like there's a lot of nuance there. I don't know.
I have met some of my best friends in the entire world through this game, and I've also met others through Melee and others through Rivals. But like, if I didn't have PM, I never would have met some of the people I talk to the most about things that have nothing to do with PM. Like, it's not just a game; it's the full community. It's everything else.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. Very selfishly, wouldn't have met my D&D campaign. Like,
there you go.
Oh, you guys
also
are in a
That doesn't
campaign,
sell
right?
you.
we're in the same campaign.
Yeah, we should talk if you ever want to play, by the way, because
super down.
I have some characters in mind.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing that Walt's really right about as well is just like it was really big. Like I think it's sort of funny to me to think that there's like a whole wave of people that weren't around when PM was big, but like it was definitely. Maybe I'm wrong. It felt like it was bigger than Melee for a while, like in 2014.
It was.
Oh, yeah.
It was
All of the big
it was
names were
biggest
playing,
Smash
dude.
game.
Yeah.
Everyone was playing. The Melee players, the Brawl players, the early
Yeah.
Smash 4 players. It was
People who did only play PM, yeah, everyone coalesced.
only played PM. It was the biggest community. It was the single biggest Smash game in the world at one point in time.
There was
And
a point in time where PM, a mod that you needed to hack your Wii and get a 2 gigabyte SD card, because before all the other ways even existed, had over 1 million downloads
Yeah.
Mhm.
on 3.0. It was the most popular console mod of all time. Like,
Definitely believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so many of like your favorite players from the other games started as PM players.
Mhm.
So many like Rivals players, Melee players, Ultimate players.
and
They
not
all
just your
started-
favorite players, but like your favorite TOs and your favorite commentators, and like so many of them started with PM.
Yeah.
I think people also like when you bring up the downloads thing and the SD card and stuff, like having been around for like a decent amount of time now and seeing the evolution of like modding ISOs and stuff like kind of what Walt was describing, where like right now if you want to get Uncle Punch, you like take the ISO and you drag it on like a file and it just
And that's
makes
it. It does
and
it.
back then it was not
Oh
like
my
that.
God,
Not
dude.
even- it was not like
Do you
that.
want to
And so if
know
you
the
got a
lengths
ton-
I went to fucking get PM, man?
That's what
Oh.
I'm saying. So it's like if there were
Yeah.
a million downloads, like you have to understand that was people like
It was the same
going
guy
through a
just a
lot of
million
effort.
times who could not get it to work.
that's what I'm saying. Like it was a lot. So not only was it popular, it was also
It was popular and probably the hardest time to get the game. Yeah.
You had to like
Yeah.
understand computers too. Like you had
You
to
really
be
did.
like, oh, I have to put an SD card in my computer and then like figure out where to get PM from off of the dark web and then do
the
all
other
this
thing,
stuff.
Too, is
Dude, my
Like, put it
cousin
in your
has
Wii and
PM.
hope it doesn't
Like,
break it.
he didn't even know I did Smash things, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I play PM." Like casually with his friends. It's like, what are you talking about?
I think the other thing too, and this isn't necessarily true in the sense that like it was a risk, but like this thing was pitched to you as like, hey, you're gonna have to mod your Wii, which like might brick it, by the way. But you still but you gotta
You're
play
just like,
PM.
let's do it.
So
It's
imagine,
worth it.
imagine if people were like, hey, you want to play Melee? I'm sorry, it might literally destroy your computer, but it's a really good game. Like that would really hurt us,
That's
and yet
what
people were
felt
kind of
like.
like jumping over it. Now, of course, was it actually likely that you would break your Wii? Like, no, I don't know anyone personally that had that happen. But like, you were
Oh, I do.
essentially signing over a waiver saying, I don't care. I don't.
You
give
had to make a
fuck.
lot
I
of
just want
mistakes
to do it."
along the way.
Every
Yeah.
time you opened the stage editor though, like you thought that like there was a non-zero chance that you
Oh, yeah,
that you
there-
might have
there
just
were- there were
broken
some
everything,
moments.
because like you'll open it and then the game will just go like "Arr!" and then just freeze there for a second, and then it'll just be
I
like
missed that.
all this
I
code
was
will
just
just
about
appear
to
on the
say.
screen. Like,
Low key, I really miss blowing like casual people's minds by
What I was gonna
by getting
say.
to a totally different game through the brawl like menus.
My
It's
favorite
too
part
easy
is
to open it up
showing
now.
new people, and then it would go black and then it would flash green before you
Yeah.
get the code.
It looks like it
And
glitches
every
out. Yeah.
person thought that I had like completely broken their TV and I had broken my Wii, and I was like, no, just wait. It was like I miss that. I wish.
Just
they
wait,
did.
man.
I actually did that to someone who's like, "Oh, I want to play PM. I've heard it's cool," but he hadn't like seen it or played it, so he didn't know that's how it was launched. I was like, "Oh, I can get it for you," and I like got him the SD card, did everything, got it set up, and when it like hung there for a second and then glitched out, I was just like, "Oh crap!" Like it just it's like, "Oh, dude, uh oh," he panics for
Dude, you
I
talk
have
about
fond
like the
memories of that stupid screen.
like Radar talks about like the challenges, especially given that current year of people.
Mhm.
You know, this was 2000 what 12 of people.
2012,
Yeah,
2013.
of like people trying to use the internet. Come on, but you know, uh, talking about like the challenges of that, it wasn't like just putting PM on an SD card. From what I recall, you also specifically needed a two, what is it, 2 megabyte or 2 gigabyte?
2 gigabyte or less SD
Yeah,
card.
you couldn't use
No
just like
port
any
was
camera
extended.
SD card. So like I
Yeah.
needed to go out. So I remember for me, I went to my GameStop down the street from me back when GameStop was like thriving before the stock
Mhm.
market and everything.
Yeah.
And I went there because I didn't have a 2 gigabyte SD card specifically. So I was like, this is the only place I know of. And we didn't really use like Amazon back then or anything. So you're like, if you can't find it at Best Buy or GameStop, you're just completely fucked. Like you have no idea where you're gonna get
Speaking
this
of,
thing.
there was a point where if you were on Amazon and you looked up both 2 gigabyte or SD, like 2 gigabyte SD card or Brawl, it showed like items commonly bought together.
That's amazing.
What's those
Guys,
two?
I
Oh, he
realized
has one.
my camera bag is beside, and I'm like, wait a minute. Do I still have? I don't know if you can see. You really can't.
You have that in
Oh,
your
yeah,
camera
yeah,
bag?
This is a
Yeah.
2 gigabyte SD card that used to have PM on it that I eventually did clear. Actually, it might still have it. Honestly, I don't know, but
I can't believe you
this
used it
is-
for actual pictures.
Damn, you can
Oh
you can
my God.
record
Well,
like 5 whole minutes
know
on
what I
that.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it ever gonna work? Probably not. but-
One sec, I got one too.
Oh my
but
god.
yeah, I mean, mine's like right here. Like it's like
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine
no,
was
I
in
mean,
the room, but
Sorry,
yeah,
just think about
I
it.
was like 4 stores looking for like a 2 gigabyte SD card because at that point nobody was using
well,
them.
so okay, so here's the thing. So this is the funny part of the GameStop story. Yes, I went to my GameStop and I go to the guy and I was like, hey man, I don't know how to explain this to you, but I need a 2 gigabyte or less SD card specifically. And I can't tell you why, because like we don't really know the legal background of this. So he just like opens the drawer of like the pre-owns or whatever, pulls out like this little baggie with a, you know, like it could have like crack in it previously, but it has an SD card there. And he just hands this to me and I was like, sweet man, like you don't know how hard it was for me to find this. And I was like, okay, cool, like what do I owe you? And the guy just looks at me and he goes, I'm also like 18 at the time or 17. And he just looks at me, he's like, dude, don't give me any fucking money. I work at GameStop, man. And I was like, tight. So I just walked out with the SD card and then I just spent the next like 3 days trying to figure out how to set up PM and make sure I don't break everything to do it. But like there's so many cool stories like that I'm sure many of the million downloads that these people had
Well,
could talk
it wasn't
about.
just that, but it was also like the weird workarounds before we had all of the like homebrew. You can control the, like when I found out that you could use the sun to point your Wii remote at to move the menu around.
You could use a lighter.
or
Well, or
lighter
a
as
lighter
well.
works
Yeah.
too. The number of like backroom PM tournaments I've been to where someone's holding up a lighter and a Wii remote to maneuver around the menus. Oh, it's so good.
I mean, that's even melee tournaments. Like you'd go to a thing and you'd be like, oh my god, someone didn't bring a Wiimote, did they? And you'd like be like looking around, they're like, oh great, now the bar isn't here either, and then just like someone's like, no, I got you, man, and
Mhm.
pulls out their lighter.
Yep.
So yeah, I think some like we said, it's easy if you come into the scene at like 2017, 18, 19, like you're a slippy kid or whatever, to kind of think like, yeah, I've sort of vaguely heard about it. I don't know, like I guess it was a thing, or I guess it is a thing now, and kind of ignore that like at one point every single melee player was entering both events pretty much all the time, etc. Like it was a whole thing, So
That's, I mean, that's when
like
I got into the game was like 2014. It was 3.0.
too,
I
yeah.
remember like I downloaded it and then like 2 days later the 3.02 came out. And yeah, my first tournament I entered Melee and PM and just everyone did. Melee was barely bigger and there's so many tournaments where PM was barely bigger. Like it didn't matter.
yeah, it's and it's like Walt said, like for 5 days of melee, like I really thought like, okay, this is kind of the beginning of of sort of a new era. So, I guess my question is: there like a, Wisely, you kind of mentioned this as well. Like I wouldn't run an event as a new. Like, is there a kind of light at the end of the tunnel here? Obviously, there's going to be these kind of shadow majors and those kind of things, but or is it too early to say?
There's still going to be stuff. There's always going to be stuff.
Yeah, the
Like,
game won't die. PM has lasted longer than most major esports. If it wasn't for quarantine, we would have been celebrating its 10th anniversary last year.
That's a cool stat to have too, and like my like content creator mind is just like, oh wow, like the longest standing esport that no one knows about, which is like Project M.
It's a great title.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it. But
we
Or
were
like the illegal esport,
Yeah,
like,
actually though.
like,
but worth
the
mentioning.
YouTube creator title thing. Let's keep going in your head.
I think to your point about like the events happening too, I just want to give a shout out to Stude, who said that he will shave his head if the $5,000 stretch goal for Shipwrecked is reached. And I think it was when I checked a few hours ago, it was at like 4,000 or like 3,500.
They're gonna hit it, yeah.
So
if you haven't already, check it out.
All right, 34.35, boys.
He's doing a 24-hour stream tomorrow too, to raise money for it. So check that out. I'm going to be on it at least once. It looks like twice.
Wait, is it? I think it's
or
Saturday.
not tomorrow. Saturday. Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be twitch.tv/Studebaker. Raising money for Shipwrecked, which, like we said, is going to be the major taking place coincidentally down the street from Low Tide City. If you're going to be at Low Tide City, please consider entering. They will work with you to make sure that it does not provide scheduling conflicts with your pools or anything like that. But also,
just coincidentally.
Yeah, just
is that the solution to just be like, oh, weird,
I think it is.
we're having an event that weekend too in the same city. That's so bizarre. I can't believe we're here all together.
I genuinely think that's part of the solution.
Yeah, we think
100%
so.
think so.
I took it to the next level. I booked the same venue because I was like, sure, why not? What's the ballsiest thing I could do to make PM players happy right now? And that was the answer.
Fact that you told me that, and I had to hold that inside for a week and not tell anybody that you booked the same damn convention center.
You know how hard it was to keep that secret?
I think it's gonna be a combination of the shadow majors, except making them a bigger deal. Because right now a lot of majors already have them. Like there's already one for Big House. There's already one for Genesis. I think it's going to be making them a bigger deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we find out where that line is of like how big of a deal can we make it before we get in trouble. And the closer to the venue we can get, the better. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, and there's going to be more PM exclusive majors again, because we know that we have to. We have some that we've always had, things like Blacklisted, which is happening in November.
Mm-hmm.
Probably going to be the biggest solo PM like non-shadow major this year. They've already got over 120 people signed up. But there's going to be more things like that because we're going to need to start running our own stuff again.
Yep. I would say I feel like it's going to be a combination of the shadow majors and then running it the way the Rivals scene does. Except without any esports help. But in the way that like Rivals has a couple tournaments that they're with the rest of the scene at, but they have their own like Rivals literally has their own major the same weekend as Main Stage. It's called Heatwave, and it's already had like 200 entrants.
Damn.
Like, or in previous years, it's gotten like 300. Like, I think it's going to be stuff like that where we just have to really push. And I think the key is going to be how do we make sure that people that aren't core PM players know about this stuff going on. And so that's why I think the shadow majors will be a big deal. But like, we're going to have to up our game on content, and we're going to have to up our game on advertising and on all of these different things so that it's not just like, if you know PM, you know about this. Like, we want the melee players to know about this, and we want the ult players to know about this. So if you're just cruising through Twitch, you're like, oh, wait, there was that thing going on. I should watch it. Like, we want the people who aren't already invested, because that's where the PM scene is at right now. And what we thought we were going to be breaking out of was if you go to a PM major, you can be a very good player and still go 0-2. Like, you can be PR'd in your region and still go 0-2 because PM majors are stupid stacked, because everyone that goes to them is extremely dedicated. And we want to get it so that there's new blood and that there's new people and that means we have to get awareness out there.
Mm. Yeah, and getting, especially for those shadow majors, getting people who are already in the same area who are vocally supportive of PM to actually put their money where their mouth is and like make the time and the effort to show up and enter is a big thing that we need to be able to capitalize on. So we're still advertising for events like Low Tide City and Main Stage, obviously for their alternative events, but getting those people to show up and support in person is going to be a big deal and going to be really important to keeping PM going, I think.
So something I wanted to ask, which was kind of a branch off question from the rollback idea, is where do you guys see the online world of PM existing, like kind of in this ecosystem of the game? And that's the reason why I brought up rollback at first, because the question that I wanted to follow with was, do you think there's a world where online PM can be the way to allow this community to continue doing what it's doing and maybe continue to grow in a positive direction?
I think those are two different questions. I think absolutely PM can be used to help the scene grow, despite the fact that we're still on the same shitty delay-based dolphin netcode that like Melee players used and for the most part did not like.
I don't like PM net play. I'll do it because I like playing with my friends. I don't like PM net play though.
But like, despite having that netcode and all of its problems, there are really big weekly net play events all across the country, across Europe as well. Some of the other scenes up in Canada. We've had those events like break 100 people over the last year. And it's also been great for getting new people into the game because you don't need to travel to a local, you don't need to find someone to have a fest with. So it's actually been great for helping people get into the game in an accessible way. The problem is that it's not a very good experience for high-level players, and especially people trying to improve, because obviously delay-based net play is not really equivalent to like a tournament setting. And that's the part where I think it's really been a struggle, is a lot of the top players haven't been entering those net play events, and they just have either not played or they've only played at small fests. And it's difficult to find the balance there because on the one hand, it's the only thing we have, but it's also, it makes people not want to play because it's so much worse.
Yeah,
I didn't play a lot of net play over the last 2 years, especially when Slippy came out, because I was just like, well, I can have a good experience playing a game because I do play all of them. Versus PM, it needs to be like, I can play someone in my region and I know like the 5 people that if I message, we usually have a good connection. And that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with all those points. And like, I know Radar and myself have talked about this at length before, but at least for Melee, Sabre, I completely agree with you, man. I think the ability to get people involved in certain ways, like Radar and myself became quote unquote, bigger commentators, if you want to even call it that, because of online being a thing. Yeah. And like, biases aside, I know I, for one, would hate to see online go because just because people are doing LAN events again, because the avenue that those events provide, whether it's something like allowing people to compete without having to travel, which is probably the most tangible benefit, to something as less substantial perhaps to some, but being able, in my opinion, I was talking about this with Phil Nolan, the videographer, but just like being able to run experimental formats. Like we've talked about for Melee, at least, like the trials and tribulations of a 7-minute timer and like why that's so catastrophic. Just run an online event. Why not just do an online event and then you can test it and then see, and it doesn't really matter to a lot of people at that point. But in PM's case, and again, the reason that I bring a question up like that is because you don't have to worry about, of course, any overhead costs. You don't have to worry about really a lot. I don't even see how there would be like the legal argument. Maybe could be wrong about that. It happened to Melee, but
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is, but the odds that we would care are slim to none.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I don't know.
See what Nintendo could actually do about that, but
I just wonder if there's untapped potential there to be able to
100%
find more growth in the community that way.
Shoutouts to Quick Draw, which is a new tournament that's been announced. That's a weekly, and it's a weekly ladder tournament. They're doing one East Coast, one West Coast. It's being run by HeartSwap. which is Melee, Sadpost, or Trinity. But that tournament is ladder, which makes it very good for new people. And I think opening it up to the full coast is pretty bold. I think you need to for a ladder tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have some bad connections. It's just part of it at that point. We already have people on Slippy with rollback complaining about having to play all the way up and down the East Coast. Now imagine on something that doesn't even have that. But I think there's a lot to be said about running either more experimental things. There's several tournaments that are aimed at only new players, or like not even new players, but just like if you usually go 2 and less, that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot of potential for stuff like that, and we've had people working really hard on it. I think there's a lot more room for us to grow in that area. Like I said, I think it's something that we're always going to struggle to have top level competition on net play, but with what we've got, we've come really far, and we're going to continue to push that the best we can with like the very little infrastructure and the relatively few TOs we have. It's really been, I'd say, a group effort from like a small group of people who have been putting together most of what's happened, and it's gone really well, all things considered. We've had a lot of growth over net play.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's good to hear that there's at least kind of some potential in that space for sure. I am wondering, Walt, if we want to move on to the call-in section and the kind of question section of the episode.
Yeah, that sounds great. So for everybody here, a couple quick notes: ! Call in the chat for more information if you guys are interested in asking questions for any of us, any of our PM folks over here as well. What we'll do is you write your question in the call-in chat, so I can screen you specifically if your name is Julian Pags. That's mostly for you. I don't want you saying any unhinged shit on here. But yeah, just write your question in here, chill in the Mixup waiting room channel, and from there we will pull you into we should probably actually be in Mixup Live.
I was about to say we should be in the Mixup Live.
I forgot that we just didn't do that, even though I said we should. So we'll pop over there.
There's 2 channels.
So should we quickly do that now then?
Yeah, we'll go to Mixup Live right now. Everybody
all right,
go.
So everyone in
Pop
the Discord.
over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right, we did it.
we got 2. Got 3.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, I have to pull everyone in. Okay, we're good. Okay, so everybody who wants to be involved in a voice call-in, feel free to join the call-in voice chat and just chill in there. You guys can meet some new friends, talk about your favorite Project M character and why it's Lucas from 3.0, and yeah, it'll just be a fun time for the whole family. In the meantime, we do have some write-ins for hashtag Ask the Mixup. It's fucking working, boys. We did it. But yeah, as I pull some of those up right now, I do want to also say to all of you tuning in, of course, thank you for watching so far. We'll be getting into our call-in section shortly, and it's September, guys, and this is the second time I've streamed in a month, so if you guys want to support, you guys should definitely drop your primers on me. But we do have a question from Reslived. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep. Yeah, that's
okay.
right. It's Reslived.
So he said, "Love y'all. Keep spreading the good word. Wanted to know how y'all felt about random Twitter discourse bashing PM. Curious where you think it comes from and what you think we should do about it."
Yeah, that's been happening lately.
It has been happening lately, mostly from Ultimate Kids. Something I think Switch made a great observation, which is, when I say kids, I'm being literal here. It's most people who are so new to the scene that like this is the first time they've seen PM be big, which means to them this is the first time seeing and making these jokes. Whereas for us it's about the 100th, so it's a lot less funny. But again, I mean, they're kids. I don't super care. I don't really think there's anything specific to do about it. It's coming from people who view this as an outside community that they don't have any stake in, and our pain is an opportunity to turn it into something funny for likes. And while that's unfortunate, it's also not really doing anything serious. I think the most important thing is to continue spreading the positive news about PM's growth, numbers, events that are happening next to majors. I think arguing with those people gets you nowhere, and if anything, it gives them opportunities to like make you look stupid. Just point out that PM's, we're doing fine. Here's where you can find info if you want to actually play and support the game. If you don't, that's cool, but we don't really care about your opinion. I think that's the best thing to do.
I also think it's a huge thing to be said for like people that are talking about game mechanics. Cool, let's interact. Let's talk about like game dev stuff. I'm always down to talk about that. Someone whose entire point is like, lol, this PM scene small. Cool.
Yeah.
I don't need to argue with you about this. If your entire joke is look at the people who care about this, how dumb are they? Me saying anything isn't going to change your mind. You're just being mean for likes. I don't care. We need to be better at ignoring that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've got better shit to do.
But I do think there's something to be said about like, this is all online. As someone who's at Riptide, I had questions like literally every like 15 minutes at points, it felt like, from people that were at the venue who some I knew and some I didn't, that were just like, yo, I know you do PM stuff. How's Undertow doing? Or like, how do you feel about the event getting shut down? Or like, are you going to go to this event later? Like, way more people were talking about PM than I've ever heard at a major like that before. And that was really cool. I saw PM in so many like hotel fests and things like people know we're here, and it feels very different than last time that PM suddenly got dropped from everything.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, and I feel like Resliv kind of touched on this maybe in a different tweet that's I'm pulling up in the mental banks, but like, how many of these like PM hater quote unquote people actually knew what PM was, or like, you know what I mean?
Know.
Like, I feel like
I'm
there's
sure they know.
I mean, I think it's everyone I've seen who's like taking shots are like pretty much exclusively like Ultimate players who probably knew about PM, but they weren't around when it was big. They weren't around when their favorite players were playing PM.
Sure.
It was always just this small game that like kind of existed, but they didn't really know about it. All they really knew were like people joke that it's dead.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that gives.
I will say it's a different topic because I really hate the PM dead joke, and I'm glad I don't hear it as much from PM players anymore.
Yeah, that's one of those jokes that people thought was really funny and did a lot more harm than I think people wanted to acknowledge while they were making the joke. But I'm glad people have stopped.
I also think it's worth mentioning that there's a difference between criticizing the game and criticizing the community. Like, I saw there was a bit of discussion between like Zamu and Aiden.
Aiden nailed it, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
like
Aiden super nailed it, yeah.
Yeah, he basically, to quote Aiden, he said, "Def get why because anti-PM sentiment sucks when the community is so small, but I think there became this new idea that the pushback was baseless when it was like, nah, man, I played it for a long time and I got sick of it." That was in response to his first tweet that said, "I think my saltlord opinion about this is why I also hate when PM people push back so hard about people dunking on the game, as if a good chunk of us didn't play it for literally years." Like, I think there's kind of a balance of some people will hate on PM. Like, I've definitely hated on PM before. I do prefer Melee. I think that should be obvious.
That's fine.
But there's a big difference. Like, like I hate on Ultimate all the time. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, yeah, like I love Ultimate. But I think there's a big difference between like, not letting people enjoy what they want to enjoy and being like, I have valid criticism about the game. And I feel like more recently, it's sort of what you guys have already said, which like it kind of feels like some kids sort of are just weighing in and being like, PM gross, and it's like, okay, well,
yeah,
cool,
and there's also just a time and a place. Like, it's one thing when PM is doing well to be like, to take shots and no one really cares, but like when we're getting dropped from majors and people genuinely are thinking about quitting, and it feels like things we've been working on for 6 years are like getting pulled away from us. Yeah, we're gonna push back on like people taking shots because
there's also the huge like being annoyed at something when you're in the community versus out of it. Like, I can complain about Ice Climbers all I want, but when someone else that has never played the game is like, oh, I heard Sonics is killing the game and that's why it's dead, it's like, no, can we not?
Yeah.
Wait, who was the Sonic player in PM that was like really good?
Wizzy. You're thinking of
Yes.
back in the day? It was
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wizzy.
the
Wizrub.
like Gimp Master. Oh yeah, that was Wizzy.
Yeah.
Right?
No, back in the day, Wizzy was the like before anyone knew who
Oh
Wizzy
my
was.
God.
He was
He
the
was known as a
13-year-old.
He
PM
just
player who
played
played
Sonic
Melee.
like Falcon, man. Like it's
Yeah.
actually I'm unlocking so many memories of like old
Yeah.
PM 2013, 2014
Before
tournaments.
before we knew how good Sonic was. The
Yeah.
fact
Yeah,
that Sonic
Wizard
got
Up
nerfed
2.6,
like
yes,
4 or
yes.
5 builds in a row and was still one of the best characters every single time.
And it was, even in 3.6, still very good after getting nerfed every single patch.
I mean, like that's
Yeah.
that's a cool thing for me where like Melee didn't have the luxury of like patch notes, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like my character will be bad in perpetuity until I die. My Mario will never be good. But in PM, he's not that bad, which is pretty cool.
No,
but
he
like
just
it was
plays
cool to
He won Mario won Undertow.
Oh really?
First time a Mario's won a major.
That could have been me, is what you're saying?
It could have been you.
Shit.
He was the doctor instead, but it could have been you.
Could have been nice.
But that's like really cool to me to be able to like stumble across because I played Lucas when 3.0 came out, and then it just turns out Lucas 3.0 was really
Very
good.
good.
Yeah.
Very
And I
good.
was like, damn, I'm getting like third, second, fourth. I never win. I never win tournaments. Let's just get that out of the way. But like I'm doing really well at all these events, and like my Lucas is kind of nuts. And then everyone was like, "Oh, well, that's because Lucas is broken." And I was like, "Well, why can't you just say that I'm good? Like, don't
both,
be
it's
like
both,
that."
it's
It's
okay.
like, but it's just cool to be, and like this happens in MOBAs and stuff like that, where that's what the definition of a meta is like people find the characters or like strats that are working for them. So it was Sonic in
then they use it.
2.6 and Lucas in 3.0 and whoever. I don't know if were there other like backbreaking patches for PM.
Yeah.
There's been so many.
But it's a blessing and a curse. Like on the one hand, it means that the meta doesn't develop to the same extent as like Melee because we're not stuck with things. Like we can change things that we don't like, and people have very strong opinions about what got changed or what should be changed, both in PM and P+. But at the same time, it means that we can make the game better. We can change things that aren't the way they're supposed to be. And we actually know what people intended because the devs aren't like these cryptic people that never talk. The devs are people in our community. So we know what they intended when they made the game. So that is a unique experience for us.
I do want to mention one other thing quick about the idea of like people slandering PM, which is often alt kids on Twitter. As someone who I don't really follow alt, but I am friends with a lot of people who are in the alt scene. Literally none of them know any of these people. And this is more of a testament to how weird the internet is, especially with kids. The fact that a lot of these accounts have had like 2,000 to 5,000 followers, and yet actual alt people would be like, yeah, I have no idea who they are. Yeah. Or I've seen their name, but I've never once seen them at a tournament, or they don't make content or videos. Like, all they do is get people mad on Twitter, and then that blows up and that gets them more followers. Like, those are the kind of people who are talking shit about PM, and we should just ignore those. If it's a large account from a real person that I will meet at tournaments, I'm much more likely to have like an actual conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Cool. All right. With that, we're gonna pull in our first call in. We have a couple right now. Again, everybody except Julian in the chat, !call. Follow the link there, join the Discord, and just hang out in the call-ins voice chat. Scroll down to the Mixup category on my server, and you'll find it down there. You'll see all of us. Well, actually, I don't know if you can see us in the Mixup live channel, but maybe we're there. I don't know.
We're there.
If you guys want to...
I could see it before joining. I just couldn't join it directly.
So if you guys want to call in, we're going to start with MSB first, then we'll go to Speedy, and then anyone else who wants to call in. Or alternatively, if you don't want to have your voice on the channel, that's perfectly fine as well. Any questions you guys might have in the meantime, feel free to ask those in chat, and we will take note and see what we can get to by the end of the day.
Not have MSB MSB 10-0'd me on my stream yesterday.
Oh, I'm bringing it
Or
in
not
right
yesterday,
now.
2 days ago.
Yeah, he's coming in right
MSB
now.
also bullies me on ranked.
Yeah, right now.
MSB
Here
is
we
a
go.
top 10 Rivals player. That's the. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
MSB
Right
is
now.
very, very
Here we
good.
go. Here we go. Okay.
What's up, MSB?
Hello.
Welcome,
Hey, friend.
sir. And thank you for joining us on the mix-up. And I hope you're having a good day. What's going on?
I am. Just one thing to say real quick. Wiseley, I will give you one free coupon to 10 me in Melee or PM whenever you like.
Thank you.
I don't even know what an ice climber is.
Perfect. That's my best chance at this point.
But yeah, I've been doing great today. Happy to be on the show.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
happy to have you. So what's the question? Let the audience know what we're about to answer.
All right. Should I just pick one of mine, or do you want to pick one of mine? I got a
Yeah,
few
you got a
that I
few.
typed out.
I don't know where to look for all of these, so I'm just gonna wait till I hear
They
some.
were in call-in.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
I dropped
I
my
see two
call-in.
different channels. So
Yeah, I
think
feel like
pick
probably
the ones
there.
we're most curious about answering. I think all the questions
Mhm.
were pretty appropriate.
Yeah, they were
Right
all
on.
solid.
All right. So, some background on this one. Let's say that I show up at a Project M tournament and I suck at Project M, so I lose. But I want to commentate the tournament because I like commentating. But I suck at Project M, so I don't know anything about Project M, Project Plus, either or. So
Yeah.
what's it like commentating a game that you're not familiar with compared to your main game? And what's the studying routine like beforehand to prepare?
I feel like I'm being personally
No,
attacked right now.
don't
It's
answer this,
it's
Saber. This is directed at one person very in particular.
and I don't know how to respond to this.
I have something I want to say afterwards, but this is definitely
No, you go
directed
first.
at-
I need a minute. Son.
Okay, I
have I have an actual response, but
Yeah, Sam has a response too, but I do want to point out I actually commentated Low Tier City 7 Top 8 with Brosa. We commentated doubles, and I did not know that Brosa played PM. I had no idea how much he knew about it.
the answer
but-
is he doesn't, and he didn't.
Yeah,
Rosa has talked to me about it later too. He's like, I don't know why they put me on that block, but it was fun.
I was also confused, and it was one of those things where I spent half of it. I was like, I don't want to like be patronizing if he does know these things, so I'm just going to explain it for the audience.
Mhm.
But it can be really nice actually when you have someone who doesn't fully know everything about the game, because it's a great venue for us to explain things without feeling like we're explaining things. And so you asking questions or like, being like, it looks like this, can you tell me how that works? Or is this how I'm interpreting it? Is actually really useful for commentators. So as long as you don't go on there and like spew misinformation without having any idea, which, obviously you know what it's like to be a top player, it's annoying when people don't know what they're talking about. But like, as long as you're going in there and asking questions and respecting the game, we love having people who we can talk to about our game. Any PM player is happy to talk your ear off literally forever about anything. So yeah, totally.
Yep.
We love that stuff. Please do it.
I will say. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, one thing worth mentioning, and this is definitely not a question that I'm as well versed in as I've pretty much only commentated Melee. But one thing I do in Melee is I ask questions I know the answer to, and just to give my co-commentator an opportunity to talk. So what Saber was saying about like sometimes it can help to have someone who doesn't know as much about the game. Like I think you can do that even if you do know the game. Like I think it's just a valid way of commentating is going like, hey, Waltz, like what do you think about the decision to do blank? Like does that make sense? Well, I think blah blah blah. So I think it can be really really natural and can work well.
Totally.
I also think it's focused less on the mechanics, and as long as you're like a good commentator, you should be able to like pull out habits, or if you're able to look at storylines, you can focus on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, like, being the person who just don't pretend you know what you're talking about. Just be straight up. I'm like, all right, why do you think he switched to that character? Is that character better at zoning? And like anything like that's super valid.
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
I got a question for you, motherfucker.
Is that me? Am I motherfucker?
like it.
And there is a right answer to this. I casted your sets, didn't I?
One of them, yeah.
Did I do good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. There was a
Unironically.
right answer.
I'm not just saying that because I'm on your stream.
Let's go, boys. Somebody clip it.
So the context of this is Walt got a Rivals of Aether commentary block and then immediately had to tweet, all right, I haven't played Rivals in like what was it, 2 years or something.
I played Definitive the day it came out. Okay, so here's my timeline of Rivals of Ether. I played on release, and
same.
I actually truly believe in my heart of hearts I was one of the best Zetterburn players ever in like early Rivals, where I was playing against like very high level players, and they were like, I haven't played Zetterburns that are this good, and I was like, that's just because it's kind of like Fox, and I just play it like Fox. I played when Edalus came out. I immediately switched mains, and I didn't even care if he was going to be a shit character because it was a polar bear, so I was super down for that. Some of the earliest, I don't know if it's on my channel. I think they are. If they're not on my channel, they're on my old YouTube channel before Turn Down for Walt. But all of my like earliest videos from when I was in college were Rivals of Ether clips back when I played. And then I don't think I played since Edalus was a playable character. So
and that was like 2018.
Yeah,
we've had like 5 new characters.
So like all of these characters came out, and then I was like, damn man, I'm not gonna buy all these separate characters. And then Dan was like, oh, the definitive edition comes out and you get all the characters. So I was like, cool, I'm just gonna wait for that. And it came out, and I immediately played Shovel Knight, and it was super fun, and I had a great time with it. And I would love to play more of it again, but my experience and technical know-how is limited to when the game first came out. So I don't think I was going in with 0 for sure, because I just understood the game and mechanics, and I thought I was pretty decent at the time when I played. But I did not know a lot. And when I started tweeting about how I got a block and everything, people were messaging me, like, you know, shout outs to all the people that DM me. Some people sent me like Google Doc lists of just like a thesaurus of terms.
That's too much. That's really
Yeah.
hard to,
well, so I'm like,
that'll make you do worse, I think.
well,
You're
I'm
just
like
trying to
running
what
through
was that
my
called
head,
again?
and I was like, what is like a Ori, or what is it, a sign check something?
There's so many sign.
Yeah,
there's like,
it's the
I know
one
what you're
that
talking about.
I remember, because shout out to Wiseley for his video. I watched that while I was getting dressed to get ready for my block. But it's the one where sign, you bait something with sign, and then it does like 1% or something like that.
Sign tap, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I had one set with an Ori, and I was like, I hope I recognize when someone sign taps, because I'm gonna call it out immediately. That's the only thing I've clung on to for this character.
What this is.
No, but I
That's
think
so
like
funny.
preparation wise, like, you know, people like, again, I think this goes back to the PM conversation we had, where people who do content and stuff like that are incredibly useful in that role. All of us here do that sort of thing in our respective games, and it has its place in the community for express reasons like this, where I'm going into a game that I haven't really I've never casted it, period. But I played it enough to be able to speak somewhat intelligently on it. I had a really good co-caster. It was Jules helping me with that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Oh, yeah, she's great.
yeah, so that was like really awesome to work with them. And for the same reasons that what Radar said, being a less knowledgeable caster has its advantages, because it allows you to kind of operate as the layman to the audience. So using questions and utilizing that as leverage to be like, okay, Jules, why is this happening, or what are your thoughts on X and Y matchup? And then I can kind of inject my own knowledge of the limited knowledge that I had over time.
Just general stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that where I think in general, I think a lot of people, especially, and Radar, maybe you can comment on this too, just in our experience doing Melee. Now, I feel like because we've gotten so entrenched in doing Melee casting over this last year, a lot of general concepts translate over to other things. Not super challenging, but there's like ways for you to be able to take some of like that Melee flair that maybe we developed over the year, and then throw that into a game and be more of a generalist there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if the game's similar. Like, I think if you're commentating, like it's one thing to commentate a different fighting game. It's another thing to commentate like a card game, or like, yeah, you know,
I would not be able to
RTS.
commentate a MOBA or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like like I think even just I know or have talked with commentators who have done that kind of stuff where it's like, okay, we'll go from commentating Melee to commentating, you know, like a Hearthstone game or something, and it's like, okay, this is like 90-second turns, and you're more talking about like what could happen and what to consider, and but you know what I mean, as opposed to what is happening. Or like games like StarCraft, which I've watched a ton of, where it's like there's a lot of like downtime in the beginning and then a bunch of stuff going on. You know, they all have different flows, but at least with the fighting game, it's sort of like there's always something going on. There's always like
More
certain
direct,
kind of
yeah.
connected things. So if you don't have experience with it, you can still be like amazing, you know, combo
Dang,
extension.
he's really hitting him right now. Yeah.
yeah, he definitely landed some hits there. Yeah.
So to put a bow on the question, MSB, and thank you for putting me on blast for that one. I do appreciate it.
That question was very
Anytime.
funny.
Yeah, I think like situations like this where I'm clearly not as knowledgeable in something like this, the kind of hard and fast roles, if you will, of casting really shine more there. So like me and Radar were saying in our last Mix-Up episode, which happened super recently, by the way, guys, you should definitely watch it. It was definitely a week ago and not a month ago. But we said like Melee is such a fast-paced game, and Rivals too, for that matter. But it's very challenging, in my opinion, to be like a hard and fast play-by-play caster working with a hard and fast color commentator. Those roles are just really hard because the game is super fluid. It kind of switches through states constantly. Similar reason for Rivals, excuse me, but I feel like because I knew I was going into that less knowledgeable than probably most folks that were on the block, I settled into more of a play-by-play role, which is what I like doing for Melee anyway. But it allows you to be more kind of like generalist because you're just talking about what's happening in the game, and as long as you can recognize, for instance, like mechanics or like aerials and stuff, not nitty-gritty stuff like sign tapping or you know, but like I know what a jab check is or whatever, like parrying and all the just general mechanics of the game. So being able to kind of sit more comfortably in a role that I'm already used to definitely helped a lot. And then the last thing
the games are fairly similar too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say about that, and we'll move on to our next call-in, is I was very upset because I did not get a single Sylvanos player in my block, and I was holding the line touch grass the entire 2 hours I was on. So for those of you who are listening, you heard it here first, and if you say that, you got it from me.
And I'm sure no Sylvanos players ever said touch grass before.
No, they haven't. Trust me. So,
Well, that caused desyncs in the early rollback build the first day it came out, so be careful what you wish for.
Oh god. Touch grass break game, but
yeah, Sylvanos was literally unplayable for the day.
Like yeah.
But yeah, thank you for the question, man.
I want you to know, I parried the down smash showed through stage, and there's never been higher stakes to parry that.
Oh god.
Day one rollback.
Yep.
That was last stock in a tournament set, and I was like, if I didn't parry that, I reset that whole stock.
Good lord.
The beauty of Rivals. And then you mess up the parry punish, like, well, I have tried.
Yeah,
my
exactly.
best.
But yeah, thank you
so
again,
much for
man.
having me.
Your crag is super dope, by the way. I love the. Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
I remember the set I casted because I actually watched it pretty recently. Yeah, you're sick, dude.
Do I get a plug?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Awesome. So, speaking of commentating Rivals, if you or anyone else wants to give it a go again, we are always looking for commentators in the Rivals Academy tournaments. We do tournament every Thursday and one every other Wednesday. Always looking for commentators. We try to stream them all.
I can super vouch for Rivals Academy. It's a great. We mentioned that there's tournaments that are focused on new players. Rivals Academy is that for Rivals. Super dope.
Yeah, super dope. I entered the amateur one. I don't really enter the one that I'm supposed to now, but very sick experience, and they do a good job running them.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, man, and I'll definitely message you about that. That sounds super dope.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Cool.
You too.
All right. Coming up next, we have Speedy Sloth is up next, and then I see Tailwinds waiting in there as well. A couple remaining questions after that, and we will wrap it up for tonight.
Okay.
Speedy Sloth makes his return to the mix-up, and I hope you're not gonna bait us with a loaded question again.
No, man. It was actually this is all a bait. Actually, the thing I said in chat, that's not actually the question at all. I'm actually going to talk about how the most controversial thing here. No, I'm joking with you. So my question is like, I think for a lot of people, Project Plus is like, even for me, like, is kind of a very good game to get into Melee because it's I think it's a lot more of an easier to learn game, even though it's like much more of an expansive roster. And one of the things that that's a buffer for a lot of different people just starting up with Melee is L canceling. And so my question is in a competitive tournament setting, how do you feel, because some weeklies, for instance, Wombat Wednesdays, I believe, is like the premier one that has auto L cancel, which is a setting in Project Plus turned on. Do you what is your stance on auto L cancel in a tournament setting?
That is a hot debate in the community
That's
right
a
now.
hot debate.
Okay. I didn't even mean it to be a hot debate. I was
No,
No,
I think
no,
I think it's a great question because of that.
Yeah. So first of all, I will give my caveat as a player that so I used to be top 50 at the game. I no longer compete because I have hand problems. So like on a personal level, the idea of auto L cancel is very appealing to me. And I value the arguments for it on a hand health reason as well as for a accessibility reason, because getting new people into a game like PM is incredibly important.
I
There are
switched to a
people-
box over quarantine for hand health reasons too, so I get that part.
Yep. There are other people who very strongly dislike the idea of auto L cancel because they think that L canceling is an important mechanical part of the game, and that being able to execute that under pressure and in niche situations is a valuable skill that like you should be punished for not learning. So there are other people who are very passionately on both sides. At the end of the day, I'm pretty indifferent on it. The event that I'm running for main stage, which is called Jailbreak, is not going to be having ALC because I know that the people who are coming generally prefer to have ALC off, and it's not a debate I care enough to have. But I'm fine either way. A lot of the scene is fine either way, outside of like the very vocal minorities who feel very strongly one way or the other. Really, we're just happy to play the game, and if anyone asks us to turn on ALC in friendlies or if they want a gentleman to it in bracket, I think 99% of the player base would tell you yes. We're all happy to do whatever like people want to do. The only people who have issues with it are generally people who are like worried about its impact at top level play, but we're more than happy to turn it on for friendlies, small tournaments, stuff like that. I think it's people are a lot more open to it.
Yeah, I super agree with that. I will say, I think we talked about online tournaments before. I think ALC is much more important for online events because trying to time L cancels with lag really is frustrating. And so I think if you are running an online event, you should have ALC on. But for in person, I think my tournaments would have it off, but definitely have that gentleman's clause of like, if your opponent asks and you're cool with it, yeah, just turn it on. Apparently, there's some new builds out there that are allowing you to enable auto L cancel per port, which I could see. Yeah, that's like brand new. Some cool. I don't even know which modders were the ones that figured that out.
That would be Bird, who is literally streaming a PM local with that build as we speak.
Right. Okay. Cool. There we go. But per port, especially if you're like, hey, I'm new. Like a new player who gets a perfect L cancel is still not going to be a really experienced player who has a couple flubs. It's just, that's how I feel about it.
It will not make up the skill gap in any way, shape, or form. Everyone who's playing PM at this point we're all too good at the game for it to really make a significant difference, in my opinion. If anyone starts playing PM and they beat us because they don't need to L cancel, that means we suck.
Hey, I messed up a lot before that happened.
Yeah.
I went for way too many shield grabs or something. Yeah.
One thing I want to just clarify, because I'm pretty sure this is the case, and I think it's worth knowing if people who are familiar with Melee might be kind of wondering like how it affects PM. But just to clarify, in Melee, L canceling, how you, for example, time the L cancel when you hit the shield or angle your shield and stuff will kind of affect whether your L cancel timing was correct. So there's this like additional skill element beyond just like doing the same motion every
Did
single
you
time.
hit it? Yeah.
That's not the case in PM, if I recall. Like it
Yeah,
works
it's,
differently.
It works differently. So basically, the hit lag in PM, like the period in which you freeze. I think in Rivals they call it hit pause, where you actually are like kind of frozen in place upon hitting them. In Melee, that's counted as, every frame is counted as a frame in the window to hit the L cancel. I don't remember how many frames the window is. In PM, that entire hit pause is counted as one big frame. And so that means the window upon hitting it is functionally the same as if you whiff. And so
Gotcha.
there are still times where it can be difficult to hit an L cancel for other reasons, but that nuance specifically of hitting it based on whether or not you actually connected with the move or not does not exist.
We also don't have shield tilting in PM.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Oh, really?
That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't.
Have I just been
no,
living a
that's not true.
lie my whole life?
No, I think we do have shield tilting. We don't have light shield. I think that's what you're
That's
thinking.
what I meant. I meant light shield, not shield
What?
tilting.
You
I
threw
meant
me
light
for
shield.
that. Yeah, we don't have light shield. We do have shield tilting. So things like if you ever watch PM and you're wondering why you don't see players like Marth Killers often, it's doable, but it's significantly harder because we don't have light shield.
Because it wasn't in Brawl.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I feel like I've just been gaslit for 10 years.
I know, man.
Also,
Well, I
while we're
was wrong about
correcting
tilting.
PM,
You can't shield tilt. I don't know why I said that.
I guess the light
Wait,
shield thing
wait,
makes
wait.
sense now that I know
What
brawl
was
mechanics,
there?
but like,
Okay.
that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have it.
I
Like I was gonna say, while we're correcting misnomers, PM crouch cancel is the exact same. Everyone says it's not. But if you're
Everyone
listening to
says
this,
it's way stronger in PM. It's just
we're
there's more
literally better
characters.
at it.
Yeah, there's moves
yeah.
that just work better with it. Doesn't mean it's different, right?
Yeah, there's just more characters that you now have to space around.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Melee, like half of the cast has a shine or a stomp or like something like that, whereas most of the PM players don't. Every time a PM player plays Melee, everyone's like, "Why are you so good at CC?" But it's the exact same mechanic. We just abuse it a lot
Maybe that's
more.
why my Mario is actually really good.
I want to play your Mario. I think it'd be fun.
Let's go.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a tangent. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, just because like sometimes people will be like, L canceling like is just a bad mechanic, blah blah blah. And I think like
I do think
especially-
any new games that's where, as someone who plays a lot of the indie platform fighters, I don't think it should be in there, but I think we have better workarounds. Like Rivals just has less landing lag, or things like that.
Well, Rivals has
It
like
is-
this, what is it called? Hit falling or something like that too?
Yep.
they have hit falling. Yeah, which is it's you upon hitting, you can immediately begin falling rather than having
Yeah,
to
it's
hit
so
like
nuts.
the terminal, like the height, the peak of your jump.
Next every
basically.
jump.
See, I know some Rivals stuff, guys. Come on.
Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Rivals commentator right there.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see. I don't want to like. I guess I want to say I do like disagree. I do like L canceling actually as a mechanic. I think because like, just because it doesn't like nearly affect top play as it does lower level play doesn't inherently make it a non-important mechanic in terms of skill. I mean, the whole part of why I love Melee is because the skill curve is so fluent and is so fluent and like consistent, I guess, is like. And I just think it's a satisfying mechanic. That could just be me. Like learning how to shuffle with Falcon was really, really like fun and a great muscle mechanic type of thing. I know in like obviously a lot of characters don't need it as much, and maybe that's just me like with Falcon, but I think Foxes as well, like to hilt your drill shines, you really need to get that really know how to L cancel. But I think there's a way to like make it, I guess, not as important, but I personally do like the mechanic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what we were saying. there are a lot of people who are solidly on the like, if you take L canceling out of this, it ruins like the core of this game. And then there's others that are like, we should never need to L cancel ever. It should always be automatic. I think I'm just in a weird boat of L canceling is good for this game because that's how it was designed.
Right.
But I don't think future other indie platform fighters or if the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl game had L canceling in it, I'd be like, this is dumb. Why are you making people do this?
I think for the people who are like, go ahead.
If at my locals that I used to run, I didn't use auto L canceling. Yeah.
I think for the people
but I do
who are
think
like
the report stuff is cool.
Already L canceling, like probably yourself included, Speedy. Like I know for me, when I would switch between melee and rivals, like my muscle memory would just be really rough. Like I would, if I went to melee, I would get knocked off stage and I would just like fucking air dodge like off the screen like a billion feet away from the ledge, and I'd just die. But for the same reason, when I would go to rivals, even though it's like not mechanically sound for my hands to do that, I would just L cancel anyway because I was just so used to that like muscle memory, and it took me a little while to adjust to that.
I L cancel in Ultimate whenever I play.
yeah. I mean, I do that too. So it's kind of like the people who are, in my opinion, the people who care about that sort of thing, or maybe who are brought up with that type of mechanics as how they learned whatever platform fighter they choose to start with. They're gonna do it anyway, and the way I see it is kind of like it's kind of pretty much exactly in line with what Wiseley said. It's there for games. It doesn't really make or break mechanics for me, but I do get what you're saying, and I think I'm with you on that, where it's like a cool little added nuance of low skill floor but high skill ceiling type things, where you can be really, really good when you figure this stuff out and learn how to incorporate it into your play.
Okay. I don't want to extend it too much. Like, if you guys want to shut it down, I did have one more thing. If like there was a way to make it the concept, or I guess we're speaking more in terms of future games. I wonder if there was a way to, like, if you could almost nerf L canceling, but kind of make it like adaptive depending on when you hit the how quickly you like input the frame. Essentially it could be like, depending on when you input the L cancel, it could be how much it cuts your landing lag or something like that. I think that could be an interesting mechanic. I know that's like obviously not really related with what we were talking about, but I think there are ways to take the mechanic of pressing an input to be able to make your character essentially land faster, do anything like that as a analog thing. But yeah,
Just never thought about that before. It reminds me a little bit of I speedrun Titanfall, or I used to. I haven't been able to play in a long time. And there's a mechanic in that game where the wall jumps, the faster you wall jump from touching the wall in the first place, is how much speed you gain going off the wall.
Oh, that's cool.
And so if you barely press it, like if you press it several frames too late, you just don't get any speed. But if you press it within one frame of hitting the wall, you get way more. And it's like a weird version of that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, I guess that's kind of can be like, I think it can be a good way, especially if you nerf it. Like, instead of doing half, maybe it could be like the max you can do is cut off a third. So it's definitely not as like black or white as in Melee, but if you can, like, getting that time is like especially a thing. And that also comes into the, like, obviously clutch factor. You talk about that, and the, I guess, the Icarus of like catching too close to the sun, you know, where you go too far, you don't get it at all. But so essentially it's a frame perfect input to get the perfect thing. But I think that's I don't know, man. I've had that idea. I've been like, man, they should do that. Maybe I should design games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't know. There's a lot of people have a lot of opinions on L canceling, but
I think if you tried to implement that into an existing game, no matter what the game is, people would riot.
Yeah.
I do think it's kind of interesting, and
yeah,
we'll probably let you go in a minute, Speedy, but I think it's I think it was interesting, the first point that you guys made, and we can wrap this one up pretty quick. but how like you guys wouldn't care, and the whole idea of port specific, you know, ALC is not a big deal to you guys. Because my snap judgment when you guys said that was like, I feel like so many people would get really salty about that if they were like, oh, like, I don't know, this guy's carried by
I think they would in
ALC
Melee,
or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I can see that.
Yeah,
But
no,
I PM exists in a spot where we don't have Slippy kids.
Sure.
We don't have a wave of new players. We don't have young blood, and so it's like, what can we do to make this a little bit better to even the ground between person who started within the last year and players like Sabre and I have been playing this game for 7 years now.
Right. Totally
And
fair.
if it got to the point where I'm playing someone who's just as experienced as me, who's like, all right, I'm going to disable my own L canceling because it's going to give me the small advantage, like, then I might be annoyed. But if it's someone I'm like, I know you're new, like, you're going to struggle with wave dashing and with wall jumping and with like ledge mechanics, like, I'll give you this one small help. Like, that's fine.
Sure.
yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, thank you for the question, Speedy. I think that was a very good discussion. Any final words?
From me?
Yeah.
Oh, just wanted to shout out my mom.
Nice.
That's it.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. We're gonna pull in our next caller, which is gonna. What is wrong with you?
What do you mean?
Oh, I thought no. I
Get
thought
shut up,
that was Wiseley laughing. I was like, what the fuck, man?
No,
So
I'm
I like.
Speaking of, I am going to grab a drink really quick.
We're gonna pull in Tailwinds next, but thank you so much, Speedy.
All right.
Talk to you later. All right, this is Tailwinds joining us on the Mix-Up, the music maestro. If he's there. Oh no. He's not there. Okay, we're gonna be pulling in the S'morehead for this next one. Cool. Oh, what's up? This was definitely the next person we had on here.
Hello.
Hi, S'morehead. Welcome. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. I'm having a decent night.
Cool. Well, it's about to get better when you hit us with this question, right?
It might get significantly worse. I don't know.
Just the worst question.
So I had a question about kind of the community and balancing structure of P+. I've been interested in this since way back at like 3.0. When balancing characters for future releases, is there a substantial influence from like, say, top player opinions or community outcry, or is it mostly just dev team sees something, says I like this or I don't like this, and decides to change it how they see fit?
Oh boy.
Laughing.
Part of it's like we talked about earlier. It's a blessing and a curse having a development team that is actively changing the game and is also people in the community. So we know what they intended, but it also means that their opinions are that of people in the community and they're being influenced by people in the community. So the people who have been on the dev teams for Project M and P+ are generally people who are top players or just people who the team have decided has opinions that they agree with or that they think are valuable input. And sometimes they're popular opinions, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're aligned with what the community dislikes. For example, a lot of the community really disliked Game & Watch in Project M 3.6. He got nerfed pretty hard in P+. And that was a combination of like the player base, at least a very vocal portion of them disliked the character, but also the devs very openly disliked the character. But
it is definitely a blessing and a curse when the community and the dev team are one and the same. Like, obviously, community is much larger, but the dev team's just part of it, and so it's really hard to be like, was this a community thing or a dev team thing? Because half the time I forget who's on the dev team, and I'm just like, they're a top player, they might be.
But yeah, no, I mean, there's been a lot of contention about that. And even back with the original PMDT, there was too about, people would get, oh, this person buffed their main, or, They don't like this character, so they nerfed them. And like, there's no way to avoid those claims or those discussions when the dev team isn't like this blank, team over in across the Pacific. Like, we have no idea who's making it. We have no idea what their decision process is. We know
It's not a Capcom. It's not a
Yeah, so that's always going to happen, and it's always going to be contentious. So yes, it's a little bit of both in PM, but that's the nature of the game and the scene. That's always how it's going to be.
I think it raises an interesting point, kind of branching off from that question, but maybe kind of in line with what S'more's saying too, is I know like League of Legends had this issue, and perhaps other MOBAs as well, especially something like League, where they were putting out patches once every 2 weeks or something like that. But it's kind of like the question of, do you buff nerf for the top level players, or do you buff nerf like for the pros, or do you buff nerf for the regular players? Because those are two different things, especially in League, where it's like, obviously
absolutely.
if you're an LCS player, your buff nerfs matter differently than someone who's playing, Gold 5 solo queue or whatever.
And that's something we've talked about as a scene, is like, because there are things that like, a big majority of the like top 20 players all kind of think this thing about a character. And there's some of that the rest of the community is just like, we're not at the level to experience what you're talking about that often. But there's other things that are like, hey, this one character will just completely derail an entire low level bracket consistently if they don't know what they're doing against it, even though the character is actually not that great. An analogy would be like removing wobbling from melee ICs. It's like not a top 8 character. Yeah. We don't have anything that's been quite as direct of like, get rid of this one thing, but like certain characters have just been like generally toned down, or their ease of use has been toned down, but if they do hit what they have, it's a little bit stronger now, stuff like that.
I mean, I would say Falco Laser in Melee is like definitely an example of like a mechanic / technique that is so like over centralized in low level play. Like it's so like, I don't know how else to describe it other than the amount of forum posts that, and like
every low level player has
say, how do I deal with Falco Laser? Like, so like into this day, like, it just, there's, people, I'll play people and I'll beat them and they'll go, I just don't know how to deal with lasers. And I'll even think to myself, actually, you have so many other problems that you actually need to address. Like, you don't know how to edge guard, you like have no neutral game, but in your head, it's like, this laser is just destroying me. And like, I think, to answer Walt's question, I feel like, or not to answer, but to address it, like, I think people who answer this question in it's easy, you just balance for blank.
Yes or no, yeah.
Like,
I don't trust people that only view it through one lens.
It isn't that way. Like, the thing is, as a person who has always been competitive with pretty much like every game that I've taken seriously, and is very tempted to say, top-down balance, like, it, if you're struggling to beat X thing, the answer is to get good. Like, that is not an effective way to like build a game community unless you by chance have just like created
only
the perfect
god gamers are allowed to play this one.
Right? Like, it's like, but at the same time, I've been in positions where I've been like a high level player in certain games and thought, like, honestly, that like it's easy to just play around that. I don't get how y'all can't play around that. But then on the flip side, I've also been like, wow, this is insanely annoying to deal with, and like it kind of is turning me off from playing. So I think the answer for me is like, it's always contextual, it's always situational, and like they're really it's a tough call that, like, I don't know, people think they know the answer, and it's like, it's not easy to be a developer. That's why, like, I actually think Melee is in a really good spot to not have that going on, because like, if we did, they would be saying like, should we be nerfing Fox's Shine, Falcon's up air,
Shine be jump cancelable, this seems really good. And then like,
should down smash exist for Peach, right? Like, like, is that a move that I have any issues with? Like, not really. Like, it's definitely an annoying ass move, but if you're a new player and you get 60% off a down smash, you're like, problem. We need some officials in here to check that over.
It's like, now we get that it's not broken, but like, you think back in like 2004, that Peach down smash would do, what is it, 55?
If you do full, it's about 64% if you just hold down.
If the person holds down and takes every hit.
I think it's 55 in PM. Might have been
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm,
no
I'm
one
holding
knows
down
what
most of the
but,
time when that
Yeah,
happens. So it's like,
yeah, like there's so much in Melee that would no longer be the same if you had patches. And you can see a lot of it's been changed in PM, but like, it's a different result. It's not necessarily a better or worse result. It's different when you don't have patches.
I also think that like it's very easy to pull the not just hindsight, but hindsight across other games. Like there will be people who will say like, Brood War, like StarCraft Brood War has not had patches in like a billion years, and it's this insanely competitive game. It's been around forever. Melee has not had patches for years. And then you look at like, I don't know, Smash 4 Bayonetta or something, and it's like this is not fun. This is like not a great
Yeah.
design. And
Think
it
about
just
how many
because
games didn't have 20 years of esports because they didn't get
yeah,
lucky
exactly.
about that.
Like
Yeah.
it's such an insane argument, even though I like want to make that argument sometimes. Like, okay, like there are times where it's like, yeah, like not having patches can be a good thing.
Yeah.
And then there are other times where it's like, oh my God, are you playing the same game that I am? Like,
Your
people
game has
hate
to be
this
in a
dude.
really specific state for not having patches to work.
Yeah, 100%.
Like Brawl not having patches, it's like, all right, then we have to ban
We have to
Meta
literally
Knight
ban
eventually,
characters.
and then we have
Yeah.
Ice Climbers. It's like, you can't do that with every game. Your game has to be very lucky to be there originally.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it is
I-
cool that they're like games like Melee are, shaped by the players as opposed to the patches.
Yeah.
And that obviously is a very good thing for us because there's less to complain about, I guess. When like the biggest thing in the world is should we ban wobbling, which has been around for so long, and there's nuance to that too. Again, like going back to the, is it for top players or is it for mid-level? And that was like the big argument when wobbling got banned, was like this truly only really matters for mid to low level players. But it's like mid to low level players are also 80% of your entrants. So like
95% of
yeah,
games.
like
It's like the vast majority of people, especially when you use the term like mid-level. Like mid-level applies to like me, like I'm not out here making money playing the game. Like if at a certain point you want to call it anyone who is like literally not a professional, like, and I find wobbling freaking annoying. And this isn't to try to create a tangent about wobbling. It's like that is the perfect analogy in Melee for like something that you play that you're like, wow, this just really doesn't feel good. And
it's not broken at the top level, but it doesn't feel good. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I'm saying this as an Ice Climbers player. Like, I get it.
I think balance is just such a tricky thing. Like the best example I always think about, and I'm really excited actually because in 2 days, they're going to be announcing the rework for the character Bastion in Overwatch, which I don't know if you guys have played Overwatch before.
Yeah.
But Bastion is this.
Not since like 2018.
He's getting reworked.
It's like so he's like a turret character, right? Where he just like he gets in this little turret mode, and then he does like insane DPS, and he's really well known for being like kind of a noob killer. But at the same time, what's really annoying about him is that like he kind of is like shitty to have on your team because it's like it's either it works or it's just terrible and it's like dead weight. And for a long time he's been the example of like, oh well, this thing like isn't overpowered, like pros all say he sucks, but it's like, yeah, if you're a noob it's just like, why does this character exist? And then even if you're like decent at the game, you're like, oh my god, they're picking Bastion, this sucks. And I feel like it's just another good example of like, just because something isn't like abusive at pro play doesn't mean that there isn't like an entire community of people, myself included in this Overwatch case, that's just like, why does this exist? Like, please change this. And I think they actually are, like, they're gonna do an announcement on the 25th for the Overwatch League finals showing how they're gonna rework it for the sequel. So it shows that like a full-on game, like big company looks at a problem like that and goes like, yeah, we gotta fix this, even if it's not like dominating the ranks, even if it's not like a no skill easy character, like, it still is applicable.
Like in that case, it's like, oh, we have to fully rework a character. But I think about that there's things that if patches had happened in Melee, like, that like Marth's range would have been nerfed, or like both his grab range and his just like how big his sword is.
Buff Mario.
Right.
That's it.
But at the same time, like, you can't just always nerf something because it's good. Like, some characters need to feel good to play too. I've played, because I do a lot of the indie platform fighters and stuff. I've played some of these games where like they were really careful to not make any character overpowered, and guess what? The games are really boring because no one's killing and everyone's living to like 180 and it sucks, and like you only kill on hard reads. You need to be able to have fun things as well, and it's figuring out what that balance is.
It's interesting. Like I feel like it's very thankless because if you're doing a good job at balancing your game, no one's talking about it, right? So it's kind of like, yeah. Suffice it to say, there were plenty of times where Project M specifically fucked up in patches. You know, we listed off like the infamous character eras of like Sonic and Lucas and, you know, whatever, Mr. Game & Watch, whatever else.
Game & Watch, definitely, yeah.
Like there were so many things that happened like that. But I think specific to PM, they've also overall, I think holistically, have done a very, very good job at making correct balance patches, or not correct because that's subjective,
I think it's probably the most balanced Smash game.
Yeah, I mean they do a very good job at responding to community feedback and then being able to implement changes that affect the game in a more balanced way, I think, at every level, which is what one of the big things that we were talking about. Like, does it just impact the top 10 players? Does it just impact the shitters who go 0 and 2? It seems like it, again, holistically does a good job at working with everyone and kind of making the entire player base happy. One of the things that I think of, you know, because we were talking about other games, was like I was just playing Magic the Gathering before we started this show. And it's like, how do you know, that game has been going on for longer than Melee, you know, since early 90s, 80s, whatever. But like you have to, like, they release new sets every few months of cards, and the same for any trading card game, for instance. But it's like, how do you make cards that, one, aren't completely absolutely bonkers ridiculous and can still interact with the cards that came out Legacy, like if you're playing older formats or whatever, or like how do you release new
power
sets
creep is a thing for sure.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And you know, that's where I go back to the idea of, if they're not talking about it, you're doing good, and that kind of sucks, but like, hey, keep up the good work. So
yeah, no, that's 100% good.
As a quick note, despite the fact that like patches are a thing that are talked about in PM a lot, especially like when some people have had their characters hit pretty hard, or certain characters like player bases are unhappy or things like that, I think the worst character in PM is still as good or probably better than like Melee Ganon.
Yeah, definitely.
And so like, who can get top 32 at nationals in Melee still? Hard, but can do it. And there's a lot more characters that are of like very undiscovered skill ceilings that we're like, we think they're bad, but I mean, it's brought up a lot, but there was a point where we thought DK was like a bottom 5 character in the game, and then Thunders became the best player in the world. That's not going to happen with every character, but if you are thinking about like, hey, I want to pick up PM, literally don't look at a tier list. Just see who feels good to play and start playing them. You can win your locals with that character. You can win a regional with that character. It's fine.
I also think, like, you know, pushing back on Walt's statement about like, if a game is doing really well and like it's balanced, you won't hear anything about it. I actually think even that's not true. I think a game could be literally, objectively, divine intervention balanced, and as long as the person doesn't know that's the case, they're gonna play that and be like, well, that was broken.
I mean,
like,
everyone will find a reason to complain. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Gamers do
Yeah.
like complaining.
and the thing is like, there's this perception even among pro players where like a pro player wouldn't be vulnerable to some kind of psychological bias where they play someone and go like, wow, that's like bullshit, because it's very easy to like experience something and be like, wow, this is like so hard to deal with, and right now, whether it's like in the first couple minutes or the first week, I have no clear ways on how to deal with it, so it must be overpowered. And like,
really
I'm sure that happens in PM.
tonight.
Well, no,
So
it's like,
you have no idea how much.
I think like it's just a really complicated subject. It's actually something I've always found really interesting. So it's not even that I'm like bothered by it, or anyone else. Like I can't speak for other people.
It's
in the
just
call.
a fun
I just think
topic.
it's, like,
Yeah.
there's so much going on, and that, like, you know, not to put anyone on
Asymmetric
blast,
games
but-
are hard.
yeah, if a pro player goes out and says like this matchup is 60-40 or something, even 20 years into the game, like that doesn't mean shit, you know? Like, it's like, it could very well be true, but like, our understanding is constantly developing, and it's still just an opinion, and that is what makes it tricky with PM, is if you kind of know the dev team, and you can kind of trace back to, oh, it's this or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, S'more, thanks for this awesome question.
Yes.
We'll be using it as a main topic in our next episode.
All right. And now, just before I get out of here, a quick aside. If I'm a brainless melee Falco who really likes aggression, who should I check out in PM next time I pick it up?
Well,
Lucas and Wolf.
I was gonna say Lucas, actually. Yeah, he's super fun.
Yeah, both characters let you hit a bunch of buttons. Both characters have crazy combo games. I think Wolf has better approach options because
it depends on what part of Falco you like.
Yeah. But they're both very good, very similar to Lucas, very similar to Falco.
Ironically, don't play Falco.
You'll break your hands in half if you play Lucas, because you have to DJC all of your projectiles.
Yeah.
For them to be useful.
Yeah.
I am not on the Falco is bad train that I know a lot of people are on. I think Falco is fine in PM. He's a lot harder though, because now there are 41 other characters that can all gimp you.
Yep.
And a lot of Melee players will complain about that as if that's not the exact same thing in Melee with all the top tiers. You've just learned how to play around the 7 relevant characters. But the problem is it's a lot harder to learn how to play around that for your region's 16 characters, let alone going to a national. So, I mean, Falco's still fun. I still play him in friendlies a lot. But if you're looking for like a true, I don't want to have to think quite as much about all that, yeah, Lucas or Wolf are both great for just be aggressive and hit buttons.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much for answering the questions and the very in-depth answer, particularly on the first question. Yeah, have a good night, guys.
Thanks again, S'more.
All right, thanks for having, and thanks for sitting through all that. I'm sure you got a little bit more than you bargained for.
No, it was great. It was great.
I'm sorry, we have thoughts on things.
Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Peace out, everyone.
All right, last one. Final call in for the evening, guys. And again, if you are interested in doing this in a following episode of the Mix-Up, which will certainly happen soon, we will do call-ins on this, and maybe we'll do a longer segment for it as well. But this last one is going to be Tailwind Z, actual music producer for Rivals of Aether, some soundtracks in there. So that's pretty dope. So here we go. Tailwinds, are you here this time?
Oh, am I here?
Yay.
All right, nice. Hello, how are you guys?
Good. We met at Riptide really briefly.
Oh, yes, that's right. I remember that. Nice to hear from you again.
All right, what you got for us, man?
All right, so, Walt already let you guys know that I do make music. I made music specifically for the characters Palm and Olympia, who recently were announced to officially become base cast members from the workshop for Rivals of Aether, as well as the entire soundtrack for the soon-to-be-released Hallow Flame Adventure Mode for Rivals of Aether. But I'm not here to advertise. Really,
Future Palm main BTW.
Thanks, but I really wanted to ask, since you guys have worked with PM and maybe P+, I'm not sure about that one. I don't know if you answered the question I posted earlier in the Ask the Mix-Up chat, but did you ever like look for people to make music for PM, and if so, like, what was your decision process with that? And then I have a couple more questions after.
Well, I think something important to clarify is that neither of us ever have been devs, like for Project M or Project Plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like the music we do not have a say in the music that's in the game. I think I've played a role in making like individual builds for my Legion and stuff like that, and I wouldn't shock me if Wiseley has done the same, but
Absolutely have done the same. Yep.
But yeah, definitely, like, we did not have a role in the music that's in the official, quote-unquote, official builds.
I do know that the actual team has worked both with, like, hired composers as well as just people that are in the PM community, like, similar to what you did with Rivals. People that are just in the PM community who are like, yo, I like making music. I can make a menu track, or I can do whatever.
Yeah.
What you do see in the PM scene a lot more is, like you said, regional builds or special builds for nationals, where they'll be like, we want this, like at SNS and then Riptide, it was like a beach themed build, and so let's take songs from other video games that have like beach soundtracks or feel tropical, or I've seen ones that were like jazzy themed, or that are like pretty heavy like rock and metal themed and different stuff like that. And as far as I know, a lot of that is taking things from soundtracks, but I've seen people take like one of the most famous like little bits in PM history. It was at SNS, this like jazz lick, and it literally was from someone who just really liked jazz. It wasn't from a video game. And so I would not be shocked at all if there's someone who's like, yo, one of my friends made this track and I just put it in the game.
Oh, that definitely makes a lot of sense, considering like Project M is a mod and all. So like I remember back in the day, whenever I did a little bit of Project M, like doing the old school, like taking music tracks and putting them right into the game, and just like having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of people who really love, making builds and picking the music. I know a ton of people really enjoy that.
Shout outs to Finger Stripes in particular, who's kind of been holding that mantle recently.
Yeah, Fingy, he's the dude who makes basically every tournament build you've ever seen. He's currently working on the one for my tournament in a couple months, but
Nice.
yeah,
He made my custom PR skin.
Also, the Party Shuffle was in chat earlier. She's kind of the original music connoisseur for PM. She really set the tone for really what the whole scene looks for music back in the day.
Nice. And then I'll move on to my second question. You guys have definitely, especially with recent news of all this stuff with like P plus and PM being like removed from tournaments and whatnot, like I'm sure that these tournaments and whatnot can reach out to you guys asking you like if they're able to use your builds and whatnot for their tournaments and whatnot. Like, what all is the like sort of process that you guys go through with these tournaments? Because I'm very interested in like the background sort of tournaments where like the setup and the process is all taking place.
Sure. It's less people reaching out to someone who is like, it's not someone being like, yo, I really liked your build, can I use it? But there are people that are just like known creatives in the PM scene that are like, this person's a really good graphic designer, or this person's puppy, or this person is really good at like the programming behind making a specific like character select screen or doing artwork. And so a lot of bigger tournaments that have the budget for it will just commission the parts of it that they want and then have someone put it together. I know that's what I've done when I hosted a PM regional turns national. And that build was commissioned from, I think a couple of different people helped me put that together. But yeah, or a lot of scenes will do like skins for the people that made top 10 on their PR for that season. And a lot of those are like 3 different people who make skins that all are like, all right, I'll do it for X amount per skin. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say, I mean, really, there's not a whole lot of process behind determining what gets used at a tournament unless you happen to have a specific build made for it. A lot of the time, you'll just have people show up and it's whatever build was the last one they downloaded. I'll go to a local where I have builds, where they have builds at the same event from, it has the Texas PR build on one thing, it has the SoCal PR skins on another one.
It's actually really cool.
It's dope. And it's actually kind of funny watching people fight over, like, I want my build, which has my PR skin, to be on the stream setup, and then someone else wants their skin with their build to be on the stream setup. But there's no rhyme or reason to it. We're not very organized.
It's also that the PM scene is even, like, we think of like Melee as grassroots, which it totally is. PM is even more grassroots, where we're not having people build giant stages and banners for us, and so we just kind of have to do what we can.
Yeah, if only it was more, because it definitely deserves it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Just kind of the nature
Custom.
of
I mean, custom builds are like one of my favorite things about the scene, though. I really enjoy like watching a national and then like seeing a bunch of people on Twitter like later being like, "Yo, when will that build go live? I want to play on it myself."
God,
Like
that-
you've put my favorite style of music into here, or like you used a character select screen that looks dope, like all that stuff.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that was such a thing we
100%,
talked
like-
about with online too, with Melee stuff.
Mhm.
Was just like the absolute real estate that exists to be able to do cool things like that and make a viewer experience that much better is, oh my god, it just makes me
Putting
so
your
upset.
tournament's logo in the middle of Pokemon
Yeah, of
Stadium,
course.
and yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all the time we have today, I guess, right?
I
Yes.
did want to do just one more question, but if you don't have time, that's okay.
What do you think, Radar?
I do think we're already kind of pushing it a
That
bit
is
long.
totally fine.
It's been about 2.5 hours. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
unless
I'm
you think
sure
it's
you guys
it's a,
are tired at this point.
well, I'm saying unless you think it's a quick question, we probably should call it. But just because we want to generally keep it to like one, maybe two questions each per call. But if it's something that like is quick, go ahead. Basically, sort of your judgment, I guess.
Trying to think of if that is or not.
I think Saber and I are both very bad at keeping answers short too, though.
Yeah.
We definitely went super in depth with a lot of these.
That's the
especially
thing,
with
is they kind of
songs.
branch
That's a good thing though, because
It is a good thing.
That's sort of what people are looking for. So, when I'm explaining like music to people, it's hard for me to explain it in such little detail because I know so much about it. But
Yeah.
especially for like, if someone has no idea what's going on with it, then I have to put it in like layman's terms. So I completely get it.
I think my gut is that we probably should cut it just because
Yeah,
we've already
yeah, that's
we're already
totally
like
fine.
past 2 hours,
Feel-
and then
Yeah, that's fine.
it just
Feel free to ping us on Twitter as well, though. And I think this goes for anybody in chat. I'm not going to say I can get to it right after this, but we can definitely answer a lot of questions on any of the social medias.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I mean,
Well,
I think I followed you already, Wiseley, on Twitter because we did chat at Riptide.
Let's
So
go.
I'll follow everybody else on here as well, except for Walt because I'm already
That's fine,
following
yeah.
him. And yeah, I'll chat with you guys a little more because, like I said, I'm very into like the background scenes of like
Mhm.
setting up stuff and whatnot. So
Sure.
just plus connections. I'm all about connections. So
cool.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for the questions, Tailwinds, and hopefully we'll hear from you in a future episode soon.
absolutely.
All right, take care,
see
man.
ya.
You too. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay.
And with that, we will wrap up. So here's the last little hurdle we need to get over, fellas. Is as guests of the show, who would you like to raid next? And as you guys think
Ooh.
of who you want for that, if you need to look through and take a minute.
I'm
then-
pulling up Twitch to see who's live right now.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the brawl category.
And as we do
Yeah,
that,
that's probably best.
any last shout outs, thanks, final words you want to impart to our audience as we kind of bid our farewells.
Yeah, I can go first on that while Sam looks for people to raid. But yeah, just I want to say thank you to the Melee and all the people who don't play PM who have been supportive over the last month. It's been obviously a brutal time for us, and we super appreciate all the support, all the people who have been tuning into our events. I'm one of the main content creators and now one of the main TOs for PM. So if you want to support PM, you can follow the scene's big content creators, which is like I'm Sabre on YouTube. You can look up Project M Nexus. You can look up SERP. You can look up Blue Zone. A
I
couple
do
others.
stuff.
Wiseley does stuff. There's some amazing content creators. There's some amazing streams. If you want to support PM in person, go to locals. If you are at or run a local that has like Melee and Ultimate, I guarantee there's a PM person who would love to run PM there. And if you're going to be at Low Tide City, go to Shipwreck. If you're going to be at Main Stage, go to Jailbreak. We're literally going to be the floor above you. It's going to be dope. But yeah, just just support PM. We need it now more than ever. Just just be a part of it. We need more people.
With that said, also before we do the raid, do you guys want to do some plugs of your own? Tell us where you can find you guys. Of course, you alluded to the fact that Wiseley does some content, but for both of you guys, give a little kind of where can we find you if we want to find more about you guys.
I am on Twitter. I'm Sabre_metrics. I'm Sabre on YouTube. I make combo videos. I also make history videos, kind of like the shorter, lazier versions of what Melee Stats does or what Walt does. So I do a lot of PM-related content on there. I stream occasionally on Sabre PM on Twitch. I don't recommend following that. It's usually very boring, and I stream maybe once in a blue moon. But Sam is a lot more active when it comes to that type of thing.
Yeah, I can chat out my stuff. I'm at Wiseley on all of my socials. So big ones for that are Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm finally getting back into streaming now that I've settled down into my new place. So I did my first I'm back stream this week, and I'll be doing a few more of those. I do stuff for Melee, PM, and Rivals, as well as I'm going to be checking out a lot of different. Anytime there's a new game, I'll be checking out Nick All-Star Brawls, and I'm doing some different stuff. If I like it, I'll keep playing. But yeah, I do a lot of stuff for a bunch of different platform fighters. So I guess that's my plug. I try to do content that is both good for casual and competitive people. So a lot of having really good players play in stupid game mode because I think it's funny.
Very
cool.
Nice.
Before we do the raid, which again I hope you guys have someone in mind. Walt, is there anything coming up with you that's worth mentioning?
Oh god, there's a lot. Yeah. There's some cool stuff, man. Unfortunately, I know you and I won't get to meet next month, which I was looking forward to, but would not be in the cards. Radar will be casting top 8 for Pinnacle in Canada.
Oh, let's go.
Unfortunately,
Nice.
I won't.
I'm not sure if it's confirmed.
Okay.
We'll see, but
Okay.
It's probably likely.
Let's go,
I know I
dear.
am commentating. I don't want to jump the gun on the schedule since Kevin hasn't messaged me
All
about
right,
it.
I'm gonna put Deer on the spot then. Radar is going to
thing.
cast top 8. At least part of it.
That would be
I
cool. I don't think it would be unlikely given the fact that I live here. But yes, I will be
I
at
forgot
Pinnacle.
about that part.
Yeah, so I think that should be cool. But just to focus on Walt for a second, anything related to you? It is a shame that Walt couldn't get out here, but hopefully that's for this event and not all Vancouver events in the future.
We'll figure out a Canada event soon enough. That same weekend, actually, I will be commentating with you in spirit because I don't think they announced this yet, but I can probably say I'm going to be casting the CLG Mixup because they decided to just have the same name. That's really cool.
Yeah,
so I'll be doing
your name. They gotta give you a block.
Yeah, so I'll be doing that event. Should be a very fun time. This was a question from Cypher. Shoutouts to him and Bottom of the Smash Mountain, of course, for just providing very good content in general. Had some messages with Samox go back and forth. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but that might be something cool to look forward to. So lots of stuff with Panda coming up. I think you're going to like some of the cool content coming up with PG Stats, and then somewhere in the mix of all that, my own channel comes in. So that should be a lot of stuff happening, but it should be all really fun.
Yeah, I forgot to say one thing. I'm going to be at Mainstage / Jailbreak in November. For sure commentating at Jailbreak. Fingers crossed for Mainstage, and then I'll be at Genesis in January.
Nice.
Damn, someone's making assumptions, huh?
I hope
You
I get
told me I was.
very soon.
All with the guy who makes the schedule.
You told me I was.
Wait, this is perfect. Hey, Saber, if I go to Mainstage and Jailbreak, can I commentate?
Yes, I will give you. One of the things I want to do is I want to do it unironically what MSB talked about, which is I want to do as many pool blocks as I can to have Melee names who can bring visibility and ask questions and get people into the game. So I'm gonna
We've
hit
been
up,
reaching out to
hit up
some of
you.
the.
I was gonna hit up like Toph and Vish. I want people to do that. So
So
I would
down.
love to
Cool.
have you commentate.
Awesome.
Well, I'll commentate with you.
Yes, I'm down. Radar, what do you have coming up?
It would be cool to go to main stage. Yeah, I actually have been looking at it. But yeah, I am going to Pinnacle. The main thing, like, still working on different video stuff. It's been kind of a weird situation lately. But I've been working a lot on music stuff lately, specifically working on releasing a follow-up album. If you guys were in the stream before it started, I think all of that music is mine. At least the vast majority of the music that Walt uses at the beginning is written by me.
Super dope.
So, yeah, working on that. It's probably, I mean, at one point I was like, this will be out by like February 2021 or something, and here we are. So at this point, I have about 5 out of like 8 or 9 songs, depending on not sure about the final track list, done, which is pretty close. I'm trying to figure out album artwork if there's people who are interested in kind of hitting me up about that. I wanted to tweet about it, but I'm nervous that I'm just gonna get like a bunch of bots being like, "You need an artist," like, and so.
I hate all of those.
Yeah, so that's something I'm working on, but that I'm really hoping that's going to be done maybe by like mid-October, which means it would have like a November release date. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Of course, I'm going to still be doing YouTube stuff, going to be doing commentary at Pinnacle, hopefully doing commentary. Yeah, like I want to go to Genesis, unless some kind of crazy COVID thing happens. I will be going, and hopefully, campaign for Wall tonight to commentate that for sure. So,
ooh, yeah, I'm competing. I entered Genesis.
Nice.
I'm looking for a doubles partner still. No one's answered.
Yeah. So that's.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
Oh,
I was just gonna say like that. That's kind of what's going on with me. Check out the YouTube. The VOD's gonna be on YouTube, so people know where to find me.
Yeah. There's a possibility I can go to main stage also. I have to wait to hear from the team to see what's going on with that. But if that can happen, we should all get together because that'd be really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'm also in the middle of figuring out if we need one more person for our hotel room or not. So maybe let me know too.
Cool. All right. Have you decided on the raid?
Yeah, I put him in chat. I'd say that's the. He's a pretty active PM streamer if you want to raid him.
Mm-hmm.
Hot
you mean our
dog.
Discord chat, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Sounds
he's a top level Washington player. Super cool, like.
Sweet. All right, so this is Lordy Hot Dog that we're gonna be raiding at the end of this mix-up. We're gonna start this raid in just a minute, guys. But as always, just wanted to say thank you guys for tuning into our incredibly consistent but consistently amazing show. And as promised, we'll definitely do this more if we can find the time to do it. But Wiseley, Sabre, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was a very excellent show, and very glad that we were able to shine some more light on PM and all the shit you guys have been going through, because it's a lot, and your game deserves some more love, and I hope that we can get there sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for having us, and it's nice finally talking and kind of face-to-face format.
Yeah, absolutely. So raid start now, guys. Get ready to filter in there. I don't know. Do we have a raid thing? We're mixing you up, Lordy Hot Dog. Oh shit, what's up? Get mixed up, idiot.
Whatever it is, because it's Lordy Hot Dog, it has to be in all caps.
Oh,
That's
God.
all I ask, is that whatever you type is in all caps.
All right, yeah.
He's an interesting dude.
Okay, we're done here. We're gonna start the raid right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Lordy's pretty weird. It's worth streaming.
All right.
It'll be interesting, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've been turned down for Walt, joined by, of course, the lovely co-host RadarSSBM for this episode of the Mix-Up. Tune in for I don't know. It's supposed to be every other Thursday. We're gonna make it work. But thank you guys again for watching. We'll see you guys soon. And if you guys missed some of this, be sure to check out Radar's channel for the video VOD, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. For the audio only versions coming out rather soon. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. #FreePM. How about that?